It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason, they're all here. We'll talk a little bit about Jason's annual 6 colors graphs. There's actually an interesting tidbit in there which explains a little bit why Apple's pushing hard on Apple TV+. We'll talk about updates to Final Cut Pro, the new sound plug-in for Logic Pro that even Peter Gabriel loves, and watch out for porch pirates. They've got a new way of tracking your iPhone. All that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 948, recorded Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. Wicked hot. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we find out what the heck's going on over there in Cupertino on the Apple campus with the Apple experts. And they are expert. Andy Anako from GBH in Boston, the man with the hat and the sideburns, which somebody commented last week, and I think it's perhaps true. They seem to be growing.
Depends on, like, it's not as though there's a seasonal change. They tend to, like, every
for the summer and
it depends on, like, when I get out of bed, I'm a side sleeper, so, like, I get out of bed and I go to the bathroom to, like, brush my teeth and stuff. If it really looks Van Buren-y because they've been on the pillow, then I know it's time to give them a trim. Sometimes it takes a while, but yes, during the winter years. I have to be ready for, like, this, seasonal times where if someone wants to draft me in as Scrooge in a community production, I got to make sure that
you got to be ready.
You know, the moneymakers are in full bloom, man.
And we now know why Martin Van Buren had such a fan base.
Exactly.
Also here, dressed in his Bumblebee costume, it's Jason Snell from 6 Colors. Only 2 colors today.
I got my. It's blue and gold, baby. It's big game week. So
that's Navy.
I am against Stanford, and that is lock up all the people from Stanford. They've committed crimes, but Berkeley is great. Go Bears! So good to be here.
So
rivalry.
The axe doesn't belong to any one of the two. It's
the winner gets the axe. It is called the Stanford axe, I believe, because it was at one point stolen by Berkeley students after beating them in football, or maybe not, just they stole it. And now it is handed back and forth to the winner of the Cal Stanford football.
And you have a replica axe.
I have a replica axe behind me, indeed. It is our axe. We will bring it back.
If I had stolen the axe, that would be saying that's a replica. And Jason's a pretty sharp cookie.
You don't know how big it is back there. It could be a very small plastic replica handed out to people who attended a game last year, or it could be real. You don't know.
The only way to know for sure is to check for the telltale rust stains from the tiers of the Stanford team.
Oh.
Yeah, come on over.
Also with us, Mr. Office Hours, Alex Lindsay of 090.media. Hello, Alex.
Hey, good to be here.
With his fake elemental lights behind him.
Well, they're not fake elemental lights. They're just not a whole server behind them.
There's no elemental attached. I have my.
This
I'm sad because you got the original green ones, and we traded in the green ones once Amazon took over and got the. What is that?
Now I do actually have the servers in my. I have the servers. I just putting them on the shelf. They'll stick way out because they're really long.
See, I don't have the server anymore. I just have
it's kind of like a gold backed dollar. I have the front pieces, but the rest of it
this is the backing.
Else. Yeah, exactly.
Adios, amigo.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to press that button. I have the.
Adios, amigo.
Oh no! Shut up, Arnold. I'm trying to plug in my elemental. It doesn't quite fit in the USB thing here. That's how I keep it lit. Somebody must have wired this, or did they sell it like this?
No, they sold them wired. Yeah, they wired them up. It was, I remember.
Yeah, it was wired into the server. It was a way to know the server was running.
It was really just marketing. I talked to someone who did it. They were like, it was just marketing so that they would be different. And he said, "Was it effective?" I was like, "I sold more than $2 million worth of production on those lights."
Yeah, it was effective because I see the green lights and I know immediately that you have the.
And most importantly, when you're at an event, someone sees the green lights and they go, "What is that?" Because it sticks out on the whole thing. And you go, "Well, let me tell you. Kids use software encoding like OBS and blah, blah, blah. Professionals use appliances." And then,
so that's a good way to start it. Yeah. But that just shows you that all server-mounted devices should have colorful, interesting
but not orange
panels.
Sorry,
this is not a good one.
We were very upset when they went from green to orange.
Was so much better.
It was
yeah. I guess they had to distinguish the Amazon version.
It was AWS, yeah.
Hey, thanks to Wes Decker in our YouTube chat who's just donated $10. What is that called? Superfund? There's a name for it.
No, that's for toxic waste, Leo.
Yeah, I was about to say. Love Canal.
YouTube is a Superfund site. My sincere appreciation to the whole MacBreak.
Thinking of the Joe Rogan experience.
On and off screen. Thank you, Wes. We appreciate that. Let's see here.
I love that long pause that happens on every show that's like just a week or two before the big holidays.
Yeah.
That's the telltale. There's stories here, but nothing like, oh my God, I'm bouncing in my seat to talk about this thing.
Yeah. Well, is anybody bouncing in their seat to talk about anything? I guess we could talk about Gurman. It broke at the end of the day last episode.
Yeah, he broke at the very end of the last episode, almost as a teaser to this episode, that he's been writing a lot about Apple doing smart displays, mostly writing about, hey, there's going to be a HomePod with a screen attached, or hey, there's going to be a robotic HomePod with the screen on an arm. This time is something that I actually really, really like the idea of. It is a wall-hanging display, not a TV-sized display, more like a big iPad that is going to be that supposedly, according to his information, is going to be a home hub. It's going to be a media hub. It's going to be respond to AI to Shlomo.
It'll be a FaceTime device, right? As well.
Yeah, exactly for calls and stuff like that. I like that idea because that's very much in line with what I see Apple thinking is a great idea. Like having a display that, when it's doing nothing, it's giving you a little corner of useful information and a piece of artwork or a family photos. But as soon as you turn and you look at it or you approach it, because it has sensors and it has cameras, and knows, the display knows, I have the user's attention. I'll go into more detailed display about what's going on in your inbox, and I'll await a command. That seems like something that Apple would be really keen on, and something that they could do something really interesting with.
Gurman says he already has a code number for it, which, when you throw that into your leak, that gives it some credence.
Yes.
J490. He says next year, though, right? We're not going to get that this year. I think it's too late to get anything this year.
And that's very credible.
6-inch screen, looks like a square iPad. Square is interesting.
Yes.
I would like this. I'll probably buy it, right?
Yeah, I love the Nest. I love the Nest thermostat because it is instead of just giving you what's the number of your temperature, it is actually a smart display that's at a fixed location and you always know where it is. And that really got me thinking about the usefulness of such a thing, where there's something where anytime I want to, when I'm getting dressed and I want to know, again, what do I need to take with me in terms of being warm or being dry? I've got a display that's always at that same spot on the kitchen wall or the same spot on the living room or the bedroom. And given that I've always been such a huge fan of the idea of a voice-only user interface, as the ability to simply make things happen just by talking to something, having a display that can not only interpret commands but also give me visual results. In an era where Apple's trying to make a mark for itself in artificial intelligence and chatbots, that seems like, again, an area where Apple can actually do something significant. There was also this week, he mentioned something about, the idea of an Apple TV, an Apple TV panel is not off the table, is back on the table or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if I ever like that, because again, what could they do with a TV that they can't already do with an Apple TV? And also the amount of competition there is. I mean, I haven't shopped for TVs in a long time. The prices of, if you just want a halfway decent 100-inch screen, oh my God, the competition there is so cutthroat that I don't think that Apple could bring anything to that. But this idea of a small panel that's just a decorative, beautiful object that helps you out and is sort of the Hal's unblinking eye in your kitchen or living room, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, it's good. And there are some other rumors that they're working on some other home stuff, which I really like. The TV thing was an aside that I agree with you, Andy. It doesn't make sense to me. My theory about that is that what he's hearing is maybe more if Apple wanted to embed some intelligent TV circuitry in their displays going forward, because one of the things that I reviewed a Samsung equivalent to the Studio Display last year, and one of the things that I noticed about it is it has Samsung's Smart TV platform in there, which can be annoying, but also if you are using I mean, it does feel silly, right, to have a 27-inch or 30-inch or whatever display you're going to have, and it can only possibly be used to attach a computer to it, because you may want to let it be double duty. It's got speakers, it's got a big screen. Maybe it will work for you in a dorm room or in your office or wherever as a TV as well. And I could see them doing that and saying, why don't we make sure that our displays are also TVs? But making a regular TV doesn't really track.
But I
for
could
me.
see putting it in the kitchen. Some people watch, like, have the news on while they're.
Well, yeah, having a device that's like iPad sized or this thing, which is a little smaller, I get. But like building a big TV that's an Apple thing, like they're never going to be able to compete with the commodity TV manufacturers. But this other stuff, I love it. I mean, I think if you look at the charts. Sorry, I brought up charts again. And you look at if you look at Apple's wearables, home, and accessories category, what you will see is that while services keeps going up, the wearables category is like a curve that is kind of like is flattened out or gone back down a little bit. The wearables, home, and accessories. And I am getting the feeling that although they should have done this 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that somebody inside Apple has basically said, hey, why don't we generate more home revenue? And the answer is because we haven't tried. So it sounds like maybe they're going to try. And I think that's good. They don't need to play in every category. I know Alex sometimes advocates for sort of them spreading, but they can pick and choose ones that are going to be profitable and that where there's no real obvious winner, and that they can make it simple and still make a big profit margin. And this might be the start of that, this little square screen thing.
Here's the graph.
Yeah, see, you know somebody at Apple's looking at that wearables thing and going,
I don't like that.
I like it when they go up.
Graph going wrong way.
Yeah. This is your post for the annual revenue. You mentioned that last week.
I get to do the sum up of the annual revenue, where you can really see kind of long-term trends. And for a few years there, wearables, home, and accessories had a long-term uptrend, and it doesn't now. It's been flat to down for a few years, and I mean, look at home, that as a category. I mean, Apple TV's in there, sure, but like if they do this device and then they've got a higher end device with a robotic limb coming later, and they do a camera, and they, and maybe there are some other categories where they can play, I think that's really interesting. And I think I mean, people in the Apple ecosystem will pay money for things that are easy and nice and fit into the Apple ecosystem with ease. And they don't need necessarily they need to be competitive in the sense that they can't be twice the price of decent competition. But Gurman's report says that they are, he says competitive with the other products in the market. My guess means it's still probably $100 or $200 more than those products, but they can afford to do that because a lot of Apple customers are happy to pay for something that's nicer and just works, and that is an opening for them in the home.
Yeah, and on top of everything else, I'm sorry, Alex. I'll make this quick. It's also, if they don't make it like a 4x3 display, if they make it something that looks unique, it is another thing that says I own an Apple product. Like I have something. I don't mean that to denigrate Apple users as, oh, look, I've got the latest Apple thing. Oh, do you have the latest Apple thing? Oh, but it's Apple users that they like the style. They like having these things out in front in public. There's a reason why the iMac comes in so many colors, because it's cool and it looks nice, and people will enjoy having it out in front like that. So it's not only as a piece of technology that does technological things, but as a piece of style, as a piece of design. Just like, again, people will often choose the make of TV because they like the way that it fits in with the rest of their decor. Again, I just think this is a really, really strong idea for an Apple product.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on who they're competing with as well. So if you look at like for an 85-inch screen TV or a 65-inch screen TV or whatever the number is, there are obviously Vizios and TCLs that are $900, $1,000. But there's also on the other side of that, there's an LG market that is $4,000 or $5,000. So there's a wide range in when we say, and Apple, I think, would look at the LG market before they looked at the $900 TCLs. I think that there are, as someone who buys a lot of monitors and a lot of TVs, there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, most of them are not, other than the LGs, most of them are not great. And so, and all of them are underpowered, so, we deal with this all the time. And there's a lot of interactions where the Apple TV is a little clunky compared to if it was just the TV doing it. That said, I think that the chances of a large TV, Apple being a large TV, is very low. I think something that was somewhere between an iPad and a TV size, that is something you put in your kitchen. You're watching while you're doing things, but it's a touch screen. It's got a nice, everything works, and you can do your cooking with it. You can also watch the news, and it can run all your other home devices that Apple will hopefully make. I think could be really, really interesting. Probably more interesting than putting something on a wall.
German says $1,000, which is Apple price, typical. And Apple, I don't know if this is true, hopes that people will buy many of them to put them in every room of their house.
I think that squarely pegs it at about $1,000 with
Can't be
Apple
$1,000.
Is if it's $1,000, it's no bigger than 16 inches.
This feels like a 200, 250 kind of thing, maybe 300 if we put in the Apple thing. And the idea that, that you put one in the kitchen and you have one, in the bedroom as a smart home controller or whatever, right. or on the coffee table or wherever. Like I can see that, but if that's the dream, then they do have to price it more aggressively.
Yeah, I have also a kind of heterogeneous system with Echoes and Google devices and Siri devices all over the house in different spots. And it would love it to have some sort of, homogeneous, every room has the same kind of thing in there, same commands.
Yeah. Well, and I still think
it works with everything. That would be very nice. I think that's a reasonable goal for Apple and something that would be attractive to buyers.
I think if Apple put that screen in the 5 devices I've talked about in the past, a lot of Apple users would just go, well, this is what as they upgrade or move forward. It wouldn't be like
one. Yeah.
They would just kind of go around. The wagons would circle.
Well, and what's the best? Even if there's a HomeKit camera out there, or there's some other camera that says it's compatible and all of that. If Apple's got a dead simple one that's got the perfect integration with this that you can put and you can trust it because it's from Apple, like it would be that's such an easy sale.
Well, and again, it would devastate. I mean, each market they moved into, if Apple built locks, for instance, a lot of people would just, a lot of Apple users would just buy the Apple lock. If you had the outlet, they would just start getting the Apple outlets and the switches and the lights because they would just be like, well, I pick it up, I put it next to my iPhone, and it pairs with the network, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah.
and that's the difference. And
it's different. People who like the Apple ecosystem, they like to invest in it. It's not like I do. I also like the idea of Apple anticipating people buying more than one of them. It's not like they'd buy a 4-pack for at a discount of $80, so for $3,800 instead of $4,000, like AirTags. But I can definitely see you buy one because it looks nice, and you figure, that'll be a useful thing to have like in one room of the house, and then next year you buy another one, and then the next year there's an improved one, so you move that into the one room we use it the most, and now the kitchen has one, and that's how 5 years from now they wind up having 4 or 5 of these around the house. That's exactly how it happened with Google Smart Displays with me, that I bought one just so I could write about it. And then it just became so damn useful that I wound up having like 3 of them for $100 each. Let's be clear, but
right.
Apple people are used to spending more. $1,000. I don't know what they could deliver to justify $1,000, but iPad style pricing I could definitely see, like a $500, $400 I could definitely see.
Apple's looking to also bolster its revenues by licensing stuff from Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, movies. Their movie strategy's been kind of broken, right?
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money on a lot of prestige movies. They won Best Picture for one, but that wasn't an expensive one. That was a cheap one.
Which one was that?
That was Coda.
Coda, okay.
Which they picked up at a film festival and for not a lot of money, and it won Best Picture. So go figure. You can't always, but then they spent all that money on Napoleon and they didn't get anything from that.
Wolves, the latest Wolves.
Yeah, but so
good movie.
They like being in deals with stars and famous people, and they like the shine of the Oscars and all of that. But if you look at it, it's not a strong strategy. And I think streaming in general struggles with movies. Netflix spends a lot of money on movies, but they are changing their strategy to be a little bit lower budget with a lot of their movies because of how expensive they can be and what the return is in terms of driving people. It's not just about retaining people. It's about getting people to sign up for your service. And so Apple has realized that they need to calibrate their movie strategy a little bit differently, spend less money on it. And one of the ways that you make it lose less money is it's got a lifespan that ends up being, after it's been on Apple TV Plus for a while, it goes somewhere else too, and you make some money from that. And the exclusive period ends, instead of saying, well, no, we paid for it, we want it here forever. And I think that makes sense. There are lots of other streaming services that have an audience that your audience doesn't contain, and they might want to see that movie too. And why would you turn down the money on that? They're not talking about doing that with TV. That may happen, but with this movie strategy, because I think their TV strategy has worked a lot better. But the movie strategy, they're losing a lot of money, and I do get the sense, and there are reports that say that Eddie Q is basically like, you can't lose this much money on movies.
I thank Andy for actually tipping me to this it's Bloomberg's Screen Time newsletter. Now I already pay for Bloomberg and get Mark Gurman's Power On, but this is good. This has a lot of juicy stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
It says, Lucas Shaw says, Chief Executive Officer Tim Cook and Services Boss Eddie Q have pushed the team overseeing Apple TV Plus to lower costs, improve the financial performance, and deliver more hits. Well, I imagine that's the
push. It's easy to say, right?
It's kind of like saying fast, easy. There's you got to pick two of those, and I think that's going to be the challenge for them. I think that the idea of a 2.5-hour movie has probably got less than 10 years left. So in any way, shape, or form. So, and the reason for that is that, theatrical is kind of, going in is tanking, and the problem is that, the things that are really successful for a lot of these are a 6-episode series, 8-episode series. Writers like it better because they can develop the characters a lot further. A lot of people like to. It's hard to get my family now to be willing to commit to 2.5 hours. Everything's an hour, or we watch half a film. No one really wants to watch a 2.5 hour. So I think the behavior is changing because there's so many series. Series is better for retention. It just doesn't like the molecules of that aren't adding up anymore. And I think that especially when you see really big films constantly, I was just talking to someone at the theater yesterday, and the fact that
you were in a theater.
I was in a theater. I wasn't in the actual theater.
I
was in a theater complex. You just
came in for the popcorn. You didn't stay for
the popcorn bucket.
Something like that. What we were talking about was really the fact that, all these movies, it used to be, well, we have this actor and we have this kind of film and we're going to do this release with this marketing, and none of that math is adding up anymore, And so the thing is that the math just isn't, and it's really expensive to have the math not, Hollywood are bankers, they're not really, the people who pay for them are bankers, and they want,
that's part of the problem in Hollywood, isn't it?
Well, they want risk. They want a known risk, and, creative is really hard.
Marvel movies. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone just goes for, there's money over there. Let's go over there,
Right.
and obviously there's tons of creative people who just want to they want to tell their story, but they still have to get through the bankers to get their story told. And the problem is that a lot of the bankability of feature films of the 2.5 hour is really dropping like a rock, and so it's just a very unpredictable environment. So I think that when you see Apple,
do you think it's the movie industry's as we know it is dead?
It's changing. It's going to change to something else. Yeah. It's the theaters.
It really doesn't. I look at the real estate. I used to, every time I'd go to Apple TV, look at the new movies to see what I wanted to watch. I hardly ever do that anymore. I think it's mostly junk.
I watch. The thing is we get caught up into series and we get surprised by some series. Someone in our family watched one of them and says, "Oh, we got to watch this."
Yeah, I think that's what happens.
And then
of that.
So I think the real problem is that if a movie gets any bad reviews now, what happens is everyone's got so much content at home. They're just going, well, I'll just wait until that goes.
I don't need to, yeah.
I can watch it in streaming. I know I make that decision all the time. Like I just go, oh, that got a medium. If it doesn't get like 85, freshness or whatever, you go, well, if it doesn't like slam, like with Tenet and Oppenheimer, I was like, hey, I really want to see that on a big screen, but I know what Nolan's going to do with it,
right.
And so, but there's like a handful.
They're a handful
of
James
of
Cameron, Christopher Nolan. They're just a handful.
Yeah, I want to go
theater.
I want to see Dune on a big theater, on a big screen, that kind of thing. So the thing is that those are, but there's like 5 directors that are directing films that really, get people to go and when you have that lack of supply, and because Christopher Nolan can only make one of those films every 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, right? That it's just not enough to keep the theater industry going. And again, for all of these streamers who are really spending all the money now, the film doesn't. I mean, they're not performing. They're not like films are not performing for streamers like 100%. Never. None of them are performing. So they're all moving to more and more series. And again, if you talk to writers, they're like, "Oh, I'd much rather have a series because it's much easier to turnkey another series than it is to turnkey a." Well,
it's interesting. Alfonso Cuarón, who did the Academy Award-winning Roma, which is an amazing black and white film shot on Alexa cameras, decided to make his next thing a series. Disclaimer.
I'm surprised that in this report, I don't think this Bloomberg report says specifically that they're not thinking about series. I'd be surprised if that weren't part of the strategy, because that is the entry point for a lot of people. Where if suddenly it's a big leap to sign up for Apple TV just because you've heard that Ted Lasso is a cool series, but if the first couple of seasons, if before they do, there's stronger rumors now there's going to be like a new season of Ted Lasso coming out. But if like before they did the 4th season, they actually put it out to bid and had Hulu or Netflix or somebody get the first 3 seasons, and then people get hooked on it and they realize that, oh, if I want to see season 4, I'm going to have to sign up for Apple TV Plus. I'm surprised if that wouldn't be a great strategy. I mean, when I did a big weeding out of my subscription services earlier this year, and Max was definitely on the bubble. And it's not that Chopped was the one thing that saved it, but I said, oh wow, Chopped! I didn't realize they had that. I haven't seen that in a while, and just. Season 1, episode 1, and several months later, I've binge watched all the way through, and now I'm on season 23. That's the sort of stuff that keeps and holds people and keeps people coming back. I'm thinking of reactivating my Hulu, at least temporarily, just because, oh, that's right, I did see the first 2 seasons of Only Murders in the Building, and I really liked it. Now I kind of want to see the next 2 seasons too. And if I forget to cancel it, that's all win-free Hulu.
And I have to say that I think if it's one thing to take the feature films, because again, I don't know if they're making any money on the feature films, but if they want to license those, I think if they just start saying we're going to license everything we make to try to offset the cost, they might as well just stop doing it, because it's not going to draw.
It is though what others do, right? Netflix does that. What HBO does that.
No, I don't think Netflix does that. I don't think you see Netflix series somewhere else. Netflix, the thing is, you get to know. The problem is, as a viewer, I barely know what we have to, when I go, oh, what service, we got really into the Devil's Hour. My family got really into the Devil's Hour, which is a great series, by the way. And, but I couldn't remember where it was. Like, I was like, I was like, where did this go? And Apple makes it a little easier because it just shows the last thing you watch. So I could find it that way. There's Amazon, I think, but it's, I think that Apple can afford, I guess I would say that from a branding perspective, I will say a lot of the new shows at they've kind of just gotten into the zone where they're starting to produce some really great content. I mean, I thought that when they started Apple TV Plus, most of the series were kind of jokes, and they would spend a lot of money on something that was not watchable, in my opinion. Now they've really gotten it working. It would be unfortunate to see them kind of water it down after. And this happens, by the way, in Hollywood. This is like 80% of Hollywood is, you just got it working, but someone says, "Oh, let's pull the plug on that." Let's water it down. Like, it happens all the time. Like everything you work on is like, "Hey, let's not do that anymore." And just as you figured it out, and I think Apple's just figuring out how to make great content. A lot of their series are really good, and be unfortunate for them to start trying to shop them around.
You're right.
I think
Netflix follows Apple's strategy of not selling their stuff on as does Amazon Prime. But according
this report
to
is about movies, right? And the movie business is a very different business than the TV business. I don't think that there is any substantial report that Apple is considering breaking apart what they're doing in TV. I think they've really got a lot of momentum and they're building up a good catalog. It's this thing of like, you want to dabble in movies, you want to get an Oscar, all of that. It's like, okay, but it needs to make sense. And keeping those forever, I think
And I
doesn't
think-
make sense.
I
So
think to your
maybe
point-
that's a different strategy for
To
them.
what you just said, the only reason to make a feature film is to try to get an Oscar. Like that is the like that to make a feature film and do the release and then run it out and then you can sell it off for whatever it wants. That's the like to get the exposure that everyone thinks is important.
Although the movies that cross the $1 billion revenue mark are not.
don't get any.
They're not
They don't even get
Oscar
any.
bait.
They get-
Things
they get-
like The
they usually
Incredibles
They
or
usually get
Despicable Me. Or
nominated for best visual effects. You know, like
Yeah.
that's the kind of
Yeah.
best costumes.
So maybe what you're going for is the $1 billion box office.
I don't think so. I don't think that, but I don't think the box office is like for them to release it in box
They want
office.
Apple wants prestige.
Well, it's
Apple
not
doesn't
just
need
that.
cash.
It's also knowing that the movie exists. One of the big problems that you get when you do a traditional movie launch, you're putting marketing out. There's a reason to talk about it. The hard part with streaming in general, and the hard part with movies, this is another big problem with movies. I know this weekend, it's not this weekend movies, but
Actually,
one of the
Jason does a show.
Oh yeah.
So
So one of the mechanics that people are dealing with in marketing is that there's a huge number of viewers that aren't seeing any ads ever, and they're not watching.
that's why you got to market on TikTok
premium.
more.
But the problem is they identify, like someone like me, I can see the extra line that says this is promoted and I skip it in like a second, like literally it's open for a second and then it's gone. And so it's really difficult to get the word. It's not that it can't be done, but it has to be done with lots of organic marketing and lots of this, very, very, it's very complex. It's not just let's throw $1 million at billboards anymore, and that's the real challenge for the market right now. People don't even know that the movie's happened, and so
Everybody knows Wicked's happening. My God, everything's turned emerald green.
and they have spent so
That must
much.
be a massive budget
yeah it's
for marketing.
They're not telling anybody it's a part 1 of 2, though, are they?
No, they're not. They're not telling anybody it's a musical either, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Look,
they're
actually,
avoiding that.
Wicked is a good example that actually is relevant to what we're talking about because they're also investing in that marketing, knowing that they have to get part 1 to be big because they also have a part 2 and they need to sell that too. So there's sort of marketing and there's some trickle down there. There's some follow
Wait a minute, there really is two. It is a two-parter.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
It's only act
the
1.
play
of the
wasn't
play.
a two-parter. The play had 3 acts.
Yeah, well,
I saw all 3 of them in one evening.
well, and
This is-
this
is
tells
part
you
1.
also.
So my point is that movies on streaming, one of the advantages of doing movies on streaming, if you've got a theatrical release, is that you've got a big theatrical marketing promo. And what that does is it creates awareness of that movie, and then you put it on streaming, and what you're getting is people going, oh, right, I know that movie. It's a lot harder if you don't do a theatrical release with the marketing. So there is a model there, because Netflix doesn't even want to do a theatrical release. So there is a model there to have some of that benefit of your movie marketing engine is also basically your streaming marketing engine.
Yeah. So you've learned something here. First of all, Wicked is 2 parts, and you won't see part 2 till it's like Dune. That's very frustrating, especially if theater goers don't know that going in.
I think they've shot it though, right? Dune, they hadn't shot part 2. I
Right,
think
Dune
they've
didn't even
shot
have a green
both
light on
parts of
part 2.
Wicked.
Yeah, this was intentionally 2 parts. The other thing is, it's a musical.
It is a
Just in
musical.
case you didn't know, it's a musical. Wow, and they're hiding. See, I think it's a bad idea.
What? How does someone not know it's a musical though? I mean, it's
Yeah.
Wicked. I mean, it's like everybody. I mean, I don't know. It's based on
People don't know. They
Yeah.
think
And people
Wizard of
don't go see
Oz,
musicals
and
either, right?
And there's no saying. I mean, obviously they don't think it's a musical because the marketing doesn't show people
There's
singing.
no singing.
So
Very
that's the clue
intentionally.
that they're like, aha, we don't tell them until
That's
they get
been
there.
a Hollywood tradition.
Let's see how
for
the
some
second
years
week
now.
goes. That's always like
Yeah.
Yeah.
the first week. I think they're tracking for like 65 million for the first week. So
I think the word of mouth is also pretty good. So we'll see how they do.
long
But
lines for the red carpet. It was like, or the premiere. It was like two days of lines in London. It's crazy.
I'm just looking to see if we have any figures there. There are Wicked Lego sets, Wicked makeup lines. There's a custom Wicked Lexus SUV. There are Wicked Crocs, Starbucks beverages.
we had we went to Target yesterday, and there was some weird, wicked, totally inappropriate, wicked rubber balls. They're just you can bounce them, but they're
crazy.
green. I'm like, okay, Target, fine.
they bought the Arc de Triomphe in Paris and lit it up in emerald green. This is really interesting. I think the 2023 was a good year for movies because of Barbenheimer. primarily. Barbie made
Primarily,
1.45.
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean,
$1.5 billion.
The challenge is what floats the movie industry is 10 to 12 tent poles, and there just aren't 10 to 12 tent poles a year anymore. And that's the part, like all the math isn't working anymore. And so I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out. And, I mean, something's going to happen. I mean, the theaters are very, very valuable real estate. They were given a lot of room during COVID where, they might not have to pay the rent every day, every month because they're such a huge part of the flow of people through a mall that, they were given a lot of room. It's a very valuable real estate. There's a lot you could do if you get everybody together. It just may not be theatrical releases or at the same rate. So we'll see.
Stanley tumblers in wicked colors representing Glinda
the problem for me is that
Elphaba.
I'm not going to say it on the show. Andy might know, but in Boston, there's a term for when it rains really hard, and it's a wicked.
It's wicked had. Yeah.
No, it's not. That's
not wicked had. Okay.
No, it's something else.
Target merchandise. Target launched over 150 Wicked-inspired products, home decor, and apparel. Base luggage introduced chic luggage themed around Wicked with green and pink designs.
It's like we're getting a sneak preview of every yard sale in 2027. I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
So we'll see. But the question is not what it looks like. They're going. All this marketing can bump up the first week. When we get to week 3, the question is, did they get 3 times as much as they spent?
I wonder if
they
there'll
get
be
3 times. So when you see those things, and internationally, can they do it? But can they get to? They got to get to at least 3x to break even, 3x of the cost of the film. So that'll be what we see.
All right, we'll get back to Apple news in a moment. We're going to take a break. But I would like to plug, Jason, you cover this stuff on your very own podcast.
Yes, I do. Downstream on Relay.
I want to give you a plug, dude.
So Relay. I just that was like there was like a on you do. It's like yes, I do. It's called Downstream. It's you can find it where all great podcasts are sold. It's the one with the purple remote control button on it. And it used to be me and Julia Alexander, but now it's me and a rotating group of experts.
Julia left because she really was kind of.
Julia got a job at an undisclosed streamer.
Yeah.
But I got Joe Adelian from Vulture and Will Carroll, who's a sports expert, who was one of the founders of Baseball Prospectus, and we talk about all the sports streaming stuff. And I'm going to have
I'd love to know what he thinks about the
covered
Tyson Paul fight.
Yeah.
And what it bodes for Netflix's Christmas Day football.
Yeah, I know. I am going to have to talk to Will about that before we get to Christmas. And I'm having next week. I'm having Natalie Jarvie, who used to work at Hollywood Reporter covering digital entertainment, and then was at Vanity Fair, and she's going to pop on and we're going to talk about stuff. So it's been kind of fun. It's tough to replace Julia, but I found some really smart people and they know about the business. So yeah, people should check it out.
Very good.
Thank you for the
plug. I just wanted you to get some credit because if people are interested in the last half hour, they'd be very interested in that podcast.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. The updates are out and a lot more in just a little bit with Jason Snell, Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by 1Password. I know you know 1Password, but I'm not talking about the product you already know, the password manager. I'm talking about something brand new from 1Password, and I'll give you a question that will help you understand why you need this. If you're in IT or you have a company, I have a question. Do your end users, your employees, always work on company-owned hardware? Right? They never bring their own phone, do they? Always work on IT-approved apps? They're never watching their Plex server in the background while they're coding, right? Wrong. So obviously, you know that. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has the answer. Brand new. 1Password Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device. It solves problems traditional password managers and MDM just can't touch. It's easiest to imagine your company's security like the quadrangle of a college campus. Beautiful green lawn with brick paths leading from ivy-covered building to ivy-covered building. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. Everything's peaceful. It's idyllic. But then, as it happens everywhere, right, there are the paths people actually use, the little muddy shortcuts worn through the grass that are the shortest distance between building A and building B. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors on your network. Problem is that most security tools just assume, oh, no, it's the happy brick paths. Yep, don't have to worry about that. But the problem is a lot of the security issues happen on those little muddy shortcuts. That's why you need 1Password Extended Access Management. It's the first security solution that brings all those unmanaged devices, those apps, those identities under your control. It assures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we work right now, and it's generally available right now to companies that use Okta or Microsoft Entra, and they're in beta for Google Workspace customers. It's time to try it out. You know you need it. 1password.com/MacBreak. That's the number 1, PASSWORD, 1password.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for supporting the MacBreak Weekly program, and we thank you supporting us for supporting us by going to that address. So, that way they go, oh, these people came from MacBreak. 1password.com/MacBreak. The updates we have heard about that Apple had touted are now out for Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, both for the iMac and the subscription version on the iPad. I thought you guys would probably want to talk about this. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they had a big get together. So Apple had the summit, the FCP summit, last week, and usually that's when they're going to release something. Not a lot of changes in motion. I think they just had some basic stability updates. Compressor has some more support for spatial video, and then Final Cut. The big jump, obviously, was Final Cut as far as the updates to the video products. They have a new smart masking, AI. Well, I think they're calling it AI masking, but it's smart masking that's very detailed. And then also transcription. And that's something that's almost table stakes at this point. If you have an editing package, you kind of have to have it be able to do that. One thing that's interesting is you're starting to see a divergent from, Final Cut was on the iPad, and we've seen this with Keynote as well. They're starting to add features to the iPad version that doesn't exist in the Mac version.
Oh, interesting.
So some of the draw-on stuff that they have, you can just grab your iPad and I want to draw something that'll get painted out during for the show. That kind of thing is easy to do on an iPad, harder to do on a Mac. With a pen. So that's the kind of thing that they're starting to kind of move towards in that area. So that's kind of interesting, but pretty, and then a lot of new spatial tools. So the ability to view your spatial work, be able to convert spatial work, one thing that's interesting is like we're getting to this point where Resolve and Final Cut feel very complementary in the sense that Resolve has some tools that Final Cut doesn't. So Resolve has some stereo tools that are really cool. Final Cuts has better viewability than Resolve. I mean, some of these, they might catch up with each other over time, but it was interesting to see both of them kind of going towards the same thing, but not in the same way. It does look like it's kind of interesting. You'll be able to view even with an anaglyph, so just the red-blue glasses, you'll be able to view stereo in Final Cut. It has a way for you to kind of play that back. So they are, and this is the reason I bring this up is that it's a big reason that Apple has Final Cut at this moment. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons to do it, but I think that one of the big reasons that none of us think that Final Cut or Motion or Compressor are going away anytime soon. People worry about that sometimes, is because Apple needs to have control of that pipeline if they ever want to do anything with spatial. Like they have to be able to develop their own tools for that. So, we'll probably see more tools in that area. So those are some of the big updates for it. Logic had some new preview, and you can preview some stuff. I didn't
Peter Gabriel was really excited about the built-in Quantec Room Simulator plugin.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly that I have a very low opinion of room simulators. So what these do, and so I think that when I saw it, I was like, really? That's what we got? Like that was the like that's the best you got as a room.
It was hardware, right, in the 80s that, in fact, Peter Gabriel used to great effect. It was part of his famous sound, right? I think the drums and so forth. But now
it's cool.
Software.
I mean,
comes Logic.
There's a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff. There's been a lot of room simulators. There's preview simulators. And I find that a lot of them just don't ever I could be wrong. I use Logic. I haven't had time to really dig into it to play with it, so I don't want to say any more until I get to play with it. Is it like
reverb and echo, or it shapes the sound a little bit?
It can. There's two different types. There's simulators, which are going to let you listen to it as if it was in a room, so that you can simulate a larger room while you're working on it. And then there is the actual simulating what this sound would sound like in a room, and that can be done. It's done in a lot of different ways. One way is an impulse, where they make a loud, they oftentimes pop a balloon, and what it does is it tells you what that reverb's like. But mostly they do sweeps. So you sweep from the lowest tones to the highest tones, and you're listening to things. And that kind of sampling can get a lot more complicated. It's a mixture of those two things to capture how long that reflection lasts. Because the issue is the reflections. The reason the sweep is important is that the reflection lasts longer in some frequencies than others, depending on the space. And so to really model the space, you have to hear what's happening at many, many frequencies to understand that. So anyway, those are some of the simulators. Again, I don't know a lot of people that use them heavily, except for Peter Gabriel. so I mean, I'm sure there's others that do.
Well, and he used it in the 80s. So
I mean, yeah. So I think that but I could be wrong. I mean, I'm probably going to get a bunch of people pinging me going, I use it all the time, and I mix for film and everything else. So and I think you can use it to build something up. You're not going to really try to match something that you have there, but you may try to use it as part of your build. So
yeah, John Voorhees at Mac Stories had a Peter Gabriel quote, which probably was published by Apple.
It's in the newsroom post.
It's in the news report. The Quantec Room Simulator has been a key element to my sound for many years, appearing on records like Passion and Us. I also used it to build harmonic drones to start my live set, which then evolved into songs like Across the River. It's wonderful that Apple's bringing the Quantec QRS back to life. Well, I mean, that gives you a hint.
So what I get from this is that there's vintage equipment that people like the sound of. I mean, shocker. Exactly. There's vintage equipment that musicians like the sound of, and it's not available anymore as hardware. So somebody actually spent some money to make it something that they can now just use as a plug-in on their computer, and that's great. It's the people who love it will love it, and I kind of love the idea that this thing that used to be this presumably expensive piece of hardware, it's just a Logic plug-in now. That's nice. That's nice. You can get that gaseous cloud effect of like red rain now if you want it.
Red rain. Greg Scott in our YouTube says that is not what Peter Gabriel sounds like at all.
Not at all. He was became one of the Beatles there at the end, but it's fine.
I don't know. He comes from Salisbury Hill. That's all I know. I don't even know what that is.
Lives down in Bath now, and but that was a sound. They were in the 80s. As a child of the 80s, that was definitely there were a lot of people who wanted that Peter Gabriel, Daniel Lanois gaseous cloud effect. They called it sound, and you hear it in various degrees in So and in the Joshua Tree and in Robbie Robertson's solo album, and like it is a sound of that era, especially.
Yeah. Okay. But that's the thing. It's like 8-bit video games. It's a nostalgia play.
Yeah, although there's a lot. I mean, if you listen to a lot of contemporary alt rock, it's all 80s and 90s sounds now. Like the 80s and 90s came back, and there are bands that want to be very 80s. And like, I'm sure. Do I think the 1975 will use this plugin at some point? Yes, I do, because they have a lot of songs that are aggressively 80s retro sounding.
And a lot of times, an artist has a it's not that it simulates a certain room, but it gives them it's a warmth or a sound that they like. And so it's more of an instrument. It's called a room simulator, but it's really just another instrument or a way to edge their instrument one way. It's just shaping it. And so he happens to like the way that one sounds.
It may even be literally one setting on the room simulator, right? Right. And he's like, no, we don't touch we don't touch the knobs now. This is how it just gets used like that. And now he can save that as a preset. It's great.
I have turned on my deep cave room simulator. Does that improve the overall sound of the show?
Makes it sound like you're in a cave.
All I can tell you is that we spend so much time. We spend so much time trying to get rid of that sound.
The producers are crying.
There's a lot of work that I do to get rid of that sound from the thing. So that's part of why I don't like to.
Today I consider myself. Sorry, I won't use that. Did you know? Maybe you did. Do you have a M4 MacBook Pro for review, Jason?
I do.
Did you note that it has a quantum dot display?
I did not. It just looks real good. That's all I know. I did not run.
That's how you know.
I mean, those displays are so good, but apparently, if you use this UFO test or whatever, you can see that they've switched from their old coding to a quantum dot coding. The issue with quantum dot, I don't know if we've got the time to even talk about it, but the technology is bananas, like the name would suggest. This is not fake. It's using quantum mechanics essentially to filter the colors that go through the display. But it sounds like Apple wanted to use quantum dot, but that it contains some elements that are toxic.
Oh,
and they're like, that's not fitting with our environmental pledges, so we're not going to do it. And then it sounds like these MacBook Pros are using a quantum dot coding that is not using that toxic element. So, I mean, good for them.
Okay. The idea, we've talked about it on Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks show. Quantum dots came out. Samsung had the QLED TV using quantum dot technology. And the idea is a better color gamut, I think. Ross Young,
it's filtering the different wavelengths in order to get the very particular color on each dot, which is using the light and quantum physics to get them. So it's not it's wild stuff to get very, very specific colors filtered through.
So it's still an IPS LCD screen.
Yeah.
But the quantum dot layer replaces a different KSF phosphor layer that they put over
and no
the screen.
cadmium. Cadmium is the element.
No cadmium.
Keep the
We don't
cadmium
want any
out.
Cadmium. Young says better color gamut and better motion performance. And one commenter said, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, Pixel response is clearly significantly faster when the test UFO motion tests are seen side by side.
Nice.
So you can go to the Apple Store and run test UFO if you want. Woohoo! Okay, so that's like look.
That's nice. I mean, they were already the best displays that Apple has ever made.
Now
they're even better. Like literally
done
the
a trigger warning or
best
something
display.
when I showed this test UFO page.
Yeah, it'll make your computer explode.
Caution, could cause seizures. Okay, so it's just a web-based test. That's kind of cool. And you can see how different frame rates make a difference in the progression of a cartoon UFO over the screen. So that's kind of neat.
And punch the monkey while you're there.
It does look like that, doesn't it?
It does a little bit.
Yeah.
Flashbacks
from that era.
That's the flashback.
A little bit.
Literally a flashback.
A little hamster dance going on in there, too. They should have the hamster dance benchmark. That would be a great one. Yeah, let's sign me up for that one.
That actually, might actually work.
I love the hamster dance. It's great. Yeah, sure.
Who doesn't?
Put it in there. Check your quantum dots with the hamster dance. I love it.
Yeah. Apple might have a fairly big fine from the UK over iCloud. According to TechCrunch, Apple faces a iCloud monopoly compensation claim worth $3.8 billion. The claim was filed by a consumer rights group called Which? Under the competition law. It's a class action lawsuit, 40 million users of iCloud. They're looking for $3 billion in compensation damage. 3 billion pounds, which is $3.8 billion in compensation damages. No idea whether this will. It's basically a class action lawsuit.
Yeah, and there's a point to it. They're basically saying that all the good stuff because Apple does all of its core services syncing through iCloud. If you want more space for your photos, if you want more space for backups, if you want more space for anything, you have only one vendor you can go to, Apple, and they keep raising their prices and you can't do anything about it. So the point of the lawsuit is that why do I have to be tied only to Apple? Why can't I choose the cloud service that I want?
Yeah.
So it's not like
sense.
a government agency. It's not like an EU trying to apply a fine, but still, this isn't just like some fly-by-night lawyer trying to get a lawsuit.
Well, go ahead and try to use Apple Photos with another cloud provider. I mean, it's really designed for iCloud. Right?
Exactly. And I think backup is a really great example where on the Mac you can choose your backup system of choice, but on iOS, iCloud backup is the only one that will do the job. And so they've got it locked down. And again, I don't think any of us would say Apple shouldn't offered those services. I think the idea there is that wouldn't it be nice if there was some competition but there isn't. Apple just hasn't built it that way, and it can be like, again, would I choose a different service over Apple for photos? Probably not, right? Probably not. It's probably very convenient, but I don't have the choice right now.
Let's have
Apple has.
Let's have a
Apple
less
just-
secure,
go ahead,
clunky version of what Apple does and have it as another option.
Right, but would I choose?
That's what it'll be.
But would I roll my Backblaze account in if I could do Backblaze
you
on my
probably
iPhone?
would, right?
Maybe I would, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's similar to like the conversations that we've been having about upgradable storage on the new Mac Mini and other machines. It's like, why do I have to pay like a 4 times at least markup for storage? Well, because Apple will not let me put in my own upgradable storage. I would certainly not be choosing Apple's prices for internal storage if I had any option whatsoever, and that's maybe why Apple does not want to let me do that. And it's the same sort of thing. It's like Apple Cloud Storage it's not a really great value unless you add the intangible value of it's all under Apple. And again, the Apple privacy is certainly a thing, but I have all my photos being backed up automatically to Google Photos, and it costs me barely anything to store these things in Google Photos.
And you have to launch Google Photos though because you're on a Pixel, you don't.
Well,
but on an iPhone, you have to launch it.
Yeah, but also I like it's also something I can launch through any web browser, so it's okay. I mean, it's not as streamlined, but the fact that I'm even using Google Photos to back up, like I've got a 32 gig card of a parade that I shot, and I just want to empty out the card. I'm even using Google Photos to back that up because the storage is so affordable.
Yeah, when you buy a Pixel, you get free storage, unlimited.
Actually, that's not for that. That's not for the Pixel. I think it only affects what you're actually shooting with the Pixel. Things that I upload sideload is different. But the data plans that they have are a lot more attractive than what it would cost for me to do the same thing on Apple storage. So if it gives, I don't know the law in the UK, but if it, just like these sort of things have worked out in the past, if it nudges Apple to say, we've got a lot of unhappy customers, we could avoid a lot more trouble in the future and make our customers more happy by revisiting our pricing for certain things, that would be a wonderful outcome for this.
Yeah. Is iCloud storage comparable to others? I mean, the prices of it. I don't know because I use Apple.
It is.
I have Apple One. I mean, that's really what they're saying.
No, it is.
You're strongly incented to have Apple One or something.
Sometimes
like
it trails behind a little bit, but in general, the prices have. It used to be that they were more expensive, but honestly, what happened is Amazon and Google and a bunch of companies made a lot of like cheap or unlimited storage available, and then a few years went by, and they're like, yeah. No, that's really expensive, and we're going to need to charge you. And so every year when I write a book about the Photos app, and I check in, and like 2 or 3 years ago, I realized, oh, this whole sidebar about comparing the prices is irrelevant now because the prices are all pretty much the same. Like there's some deals, and it depends. And if you're an Apple One, you get you roll it into your bundle and all of that. But in general, it is the rare place where Apple, I feel like, isn't charging twice for the same amount of stuff, and that's because Google kind of set their prices right, and Amazon got rid of their tier where you could upload as many photos as you wanted for free as long as it was below a certain resolution, there because they all realized that's really expensive, and so Apple actually competes pretty well there.
I've asked my artificial intelligence assistant to make us a table of iCloud, Google Drive, and OneDrive price comparison, and Apple's definitely competitive right in there. Most people, in fact, I think I told my mom or somebody when they got a new phone, just get the 99-cent a month iCloud so that you can back up the phone and your photos.
Yeah.
That's 50 gigs. $3 a month for 200 gigs, and many of us have 2 terabytes because we have. Yeah,
and pro tip: if you have a loved one who is who you're worried about them backing them up,
you could share it.
You could put them on your family plan, and then they get access to your pool. And that's what I did with my mom. I had my mom paying Apple 99 cents a month, and at one point I was like, "I'm just putting you in the family. Stop paying
my
them.
family now. Yeah,
it's fine.
Congratulations, Mom.
Yeah, she can also, I guess, use our apps. I don't know. She's not going to do any of that, but her backups are happening. So
Apple did recently add 6 terabyte and 12 terabyte tiers, which is wow.
You get a lot of photos and videos. It'll happen fast.
Yeah. It's like I do have, but I do have to. I feel like I can't do without having both Apple iCloud storage and also paying for Google Cloud storage. And I think I'm still paying for Dropbox for some reason that I'd have to do another investigation to remember.
Yeah, I am the same way.
It'd be nice
why
for you
do
to
I
simply
have
say
this?
that I want to buy one provider and just simply connect it, and that would be wonderful.
My problem with Dropbox, I pay for Dropbox too, and the problem is that I have to set up a computer and then set the drive up on the computer and let it sync because of the problem. And they've made so much money. Dropbox has made thousands of dollars from me over years.
Yes,
because
subscriptions.
They won't let you say grab the whole folder and download it. You have to like do the sync thing, and it's on my list. It's like, and it gets higher every day. Like every time they send me another, like you paid $75. I'm like, oh my gosh, and yeah.
Actually, you want to really know annoying, try using Windows with Microsoft's OneDrive, or rather try using Windows without Microsoft's OneDrive. They harass you to death. And a new install of Windows is particularly, I found out because I got one of the new Snapdragon development kits. I just wanted to see how Snapdragon compared with Apple's M series. And if you watched Windows Weekly that week, you saw me struggling because OneDrive just decided it was going to index the entire drive, and it spent hours doing it. Finally, Paul showed me how to just turn it off permanently. So you could be more intrusive, I guess, is what I'm saying. Apple's not as Apple has a good excuse. I think that this is Apple's excuse in many cases. It's easier for users. We just don't want to bother them. Just make it simple.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's money in our pocket. And I, for one, am happy.
It's time versus money. Like it's kind of like there's a lot of Apple users just they value their time as the same as and they don't want to spend a bunch of time working on this because that equates to something for them. I think that's but I feel like
should they have a higher higher
free
free tier? Is 5 gigs enough for the free tier? Google offers 15 gigs.
Sure. I think it should probably be related to how many devices you've got connected and how much their storage is. And I feel like, they could probably scale it there. They're making enough money on the hardware that they could give away a little more for free. And because really, if you're going to do your whole photo library, you're going to need to pay them, and that's fine. But I think Alex is exactly right. This is what we were talking about the home stuff too, is like, and this happens when we all talk about this, and when I write stories about this, it always comes up where you're like, Apple's selling this thing, and it costs whatever, $500, and you just plug it in, and you configure it, and it works with all your stuff, and it's great. And then somebody comes in, they roll in the door, and they're like, well, actually, if you get a Docker container on a server that you run in your house, and then you take a Raspberry Pi, and you attach this camera to it, and it only costs $100, so you could save all that money. And the answer is, yeah, you could do that. And if that is fun for you, but and I am a nerd too, but there are moments where I'm like, I just am going to pay for the Apple thing, and it's easy, and I don't want to bother with all that nonsense.
I mean, my problem is that anything that I do that I don't like to do, I equate to how much I'm getting, what my hourly is. Like I just literally
There's a
think
problem
about
for you.
Like so like I just go if
Alex's rate is very high.
So I go and I learned this from my father. My father was a lawyer, and his rate was much higher than mine is. But I said, like, why don't you wash your own car? And he's like, because I don't like washing my own car. And if I don't like anything, it's the hour. I think about my hourly, and it's cheaper to pay you $20 to wash my car. So I think about that. And I think a lot of Apple users, I mean, they may not consciously think about it, but I definitely think about, like, I don't want to do that. And that means, like, what would my hour, like, if this can take me 2 hours, it's X number of dollars that I add on to the cost of owning that piece of equipment. Like literally, I just think of it as it's that plus the build of it is the cost of cost of ownership, and I think that, and so I guess I kind of feel like when people are suing Apple over this stuff, I'm kind of like, well, when you buy, it's not like Apple suddenly snuck up and did all these things. Like when you buy an Apple device, you're kind of buying into the experience, like, and if you don't like it, go buy something else.
No, I mean, I do always like the idea of Apple having to having to explain themselves and having to do such thing in a way that's not emotional, that's rational. And so, and it's to be fair, like sometimes something that is not right can go unchallenged for a long time before all of the elements come together to say, I'm going to have to ask you to spend some time with your lawyers to explain to an impartial third party why this behavior is okay. I mean, all of your points are absolutely valid, and I don't think that this should go to the point where like Apple has to change their patterns here at all. It would be nice if they offered alternatives, but again, that would require so much re-engineering of iCloud disrupted so many developers. Okay, when it first came out, the first time Apple put their foot down and said, "Okay, we are not you have a tic-tac-toe game. We are not going to allow you to put it on the App Store unless it supports iCloud." And the amount of developers that there was so much gnashing of teeth because we have solutions that work great. iCloud does not give us any advantages whatsoever, and having to support it now is causing us 3 to 4 months of heartache that we would much rather apply towards actually improving our product in ways that our users have been demanding for a long, long time. Imagine having to do that like at the low level that would be required to like re-engineer iCloud for every single Apple service that uses it. But again, I like the idea of Apple and Microsoft and Google occasionally having to step in front of a court and say, here is why we've made this decision. And in doing so, the people inside Apple who might have been arguing all along that maybe it's time to increase the free tier, or maybe it's time to revisit our pricing structure, though they now have another argument to be made when they're in the conference room having this discussion that they might not have had in years before.
Let's take a break. Come back with more. Our esteemed panel, Jason Snell from sixcolors.com, WGBH Boston's Andy Ihnatko in the library, and of course Alex Lindsay. Do you have an opinion, Alex, on the Stanford versus Cal football game coming up this weekend?
Go Steelers. Steelers had a great game.
You could wear the same, almost the same colors, actually.
Okay.
So
so it was a good game. We have another game on Thursday.
So towel.
Yeah. There we go. So
terrible towel Steelers outfit.
Yes.
Our show. What? Go ahead.
I was going to say, you guys. I mean, everyone else tries to do the towel, and it doesn't work out nearly.
No, there's only one terrible towel.
Well, the funny thing is, the Steelers played with the Commanders, and the Commanders tried to make up their own towels to keep up.
No.
And then still, half of their stadium was full of Steeler fans with terrible towels.
You can't invent a tradition. Okay?
I know it's so.
No, you couldn't have planned the terrible towel when that what was that sports
Myron
journalist.
Myron
exactly.
Cope.
He just basically he did not think that I'm going to cause a revolution.
I mean,
but he did.
In Pittsburgh, if you can't figure out what to get someone for Christmas, it's totally acceptable to just to get them another towel. Like you here's a terrible towel. Everyone's like, okay.
Here's some Blue Angel Steelers fans. Here's some astronaut Steelers fans.
I only recently learned that. So he was smart enough to trademark it, but not so that he can shut out anybody else who's trying to do yellow towels. It's a charity thing. So that makes basically not only you buying like a legitimate towel, but also you're benefiting an important charity. Like, wow, that is super, super awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's well thought out. It's fun. It's fun to watch a Steeler game, especially when they're at home, because the whole place is just bonkers. just a bonker place to watch a football game. So.
All right. Our show today, not brought to you by the terrible towel or by Myron Cope, but an equally useful thing, actually, ZocDoc. Now, when you need a doctor, what do you do? How do you find a good You ask a friend, ask a neighbor, go online. That's kind of a crapshoot. There's some things that's okay in life that they're a little bit iffy. Trying a new type of non-dairy milk in your coffee. Maybe buying something on an Instagram ad in the middle of the night. Gas station sushi. They know me so well. But finding the right doctor, you don't want to take a chance. Thankfully, there's ZocDoc. It is such a great way to find a doctor. You've got more options than you know. It's a free app. You can go to the website and do it too, where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors. Choose the right one for your needs. Click to instantly book an appointment. I mean, I'm talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty. It's not just MDs, by the way. Mental health, dental health, eye care, skin care, and much more. You could filter for doctors who take your insurance, who are located nearby, who are a good fit for whatever your medical need may be. And here's the thing I like the best about ZocDoc. you can see actual verified patient reviews and ratings. And that is so useful, not just for telling you that this is a doctor whose patients love them, a doctor who gets the job done, but also the style of the doctor. Friendly, office, great bedside manner, or maybe very quick and to the point, which I kind of prefer. You get to choose. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor appointments. You know you need to go. ZocDoc.com. What is this strange mole on my hand? ZocDoc.com. Search for dermatologist. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. We thank ZocDoc so much. I use them, and it's really handy. You can say, look, this is the insurance. This is what I need. Can I get somebody now? ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. And if you eat gas, Discord says, and if you eat that gas station sushi, you may actually need ZocDoc sooner than you think. Let's see, what else? Apple has removed another app from the Russian App Store at the request of Russian regulator Roskomnadzor. Another Radio Free Europe app is gone. They've removed others before. I guess, what are you going to say? They've removed VPN apps. They do it. Radio Free Europe /RL was placed on Russia's list of undesirable organizations in February. RL is the app for Siberia.realities and North.realities. And this is from Radio Free Europe. I understand Radio Free Europe has always been kind of a thorn in the side of the with the former Soviet Union, and they don't want the apps on there.
Yeah, again, they got to do what they got to do, even though they're not selling iPhones in Russia anymore.
Yep, they pulled off some podcasts as well.
Yeah. Can I interject that there's also a piece of news that just came across after we started recording. Apple has just released a flurry of really important security updates for iPhone, Mac, iPad, Vision OS, everything. There's Google discovered a 0-day that is in the wild, and I've been reading for the past half hour about it. Apparently, it has been used in the wild against Intel-based Macs. One of the flaws, I'm reading a summary from PC Mag here. One of the flaws can cause a cross-site scripting attack through Apple's WebKit browser engine, which is used in Safari and web browsers for iOS and iPadOS. The resulting attack can inject malicious computer code into a legitimate website or app. And there's a second vulnerability that can trigger Apple's JavaScript core software to run malicious computer code without the user's permission. Apple's advisory suggests hackers use both flaws together to target older Intel-based Macs, which the company started transitioning away from in 2020 in favor of using its own ARM-based M chips. But yeah, they just, I have links on the show notes at there's a support page, supportapple.com. So update to Vision OS 2.1.1, iOS 18.1.1, iPadOS 18.1.1, iOS 17 has been updated, macOS Sequoia 15.1.1 have been released. So obviously it's something that is affecting the Safari render, the Safari engine. So it was very, very important. So don't wait on that.
Yep, I see it on my iPhone right now. So 18.1.1, and it sounds like Mac everywhere, right?
Everything that does Safari, apparently.
Okay. I wonder if you don't use Safari. Here's the iPhone. Important security fixes. Update now. By the way, I love this iPhone view on Sequoia. Isn't that great? I can pull up my iPhone.
I can be scared on two platforms at once.
If I click update now, does it update? Oh, it does. Look at that. That's kind of cool.
Remote management. You're an admin.
And now it's in use, and I can't do anything with it. Okay. Maybe you can't do the update directly. All right. Thank you for that important update. Safari has a problem, and it's in the wild. That's what a 0-day means. It's currently out there.
It's the worst case, not only in the wild, but also means that it's been used by somebody. So.
Yeah. I guess my watch doesn't have Safari, so I'm probably okay there.
Yeah, there's no watchOS update in this update suite.
18.1.1, 15.
Hackers are trying to access your watch and change the color scheme to something that doesn't actually match the standard 3-color Zorn palette.
Damn. Don't have to worry about your Apple TV.
Monsters.
Though. Yeah. You're safe on the Apple TV.
Blue and brown. Oh my God.
I guess Vision Pro, you'd have to update Vision OS. Yeah.
There's Vision OS is updated to 2.1.1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okie dokie. Weirdly, people are starting to get refunds for AppleCare Plus many years after an Apple trade-in. This is 9 to 5 Mac reporting. Dear customer, I would love to get this. Our records indicate you're eligible for a refund associated with their AppleCare Plus agreement for your iPhone 12 Pro Max. You returned or traded in, and this person got a $200 refund. So check. It's in some cases more than it would be for your unused portion of AppleCare. So I guess if you traded in your phone and you had AppleCare Plus and it was still running, Apple didn't automatically refund you at the time. But now they're getting around to it. Somebody did an audit.
It's nice that this didn't come from any sort of a lawsuit or any sort of responding to 9 to 5 Mac or Mac Rumors discovered something. It's like, no, that's someone was doing their job. Someone realized that, oh, we owe a whole bunch of people money. We should get on that. That's good. That's good for Apple.
Nice. Let's see. What else? Apple, this is from the Indian Express. I don't usually do stories from the Indian Express, but they had I guess they had an interview with Tom Boger, Vice President of Mac Product Marketing, saying, we don't leave any money on the table. Wait a minute. We are not a merchant silicon company trying to leave nothing on the table. In other words, we're not going to sell. We do not build chips and sell them to other people. Right. We do not make money that way. Folks who do make money that way have the burden of adding margin on top of whatever they buy. He's obviously talking about AMD, Intel, NVIDIA, and Qualcomm.
It also goes to how their philosophy of building chips, which is that they build the chip for specific Apple products to use that chip. Whereas, if you're making a product that you sell, you need to build it with certain specs that you maybe have idealized, and then you put it out on the market and people buy it. Or maybe you work with some partners to make sure you meet their specs. Apple, when they designed the M4, they're like, all right, this is going to go in the iPad Pro and the MacBook Air and the low-end MacBook Pro and the iMac. And they know exactly what computers are going to use the chips that they design. They're basically planned together. And that gives them some power and flexibility that other companies don't have, because they have to, even if they've got a tight, Apple used to have a tight relationship with Intel in the early days, and they designed the chip that went in the first MacBook Air together. But even then, Intel was like, yeah, but we got to sell this to everybody else too. So what are we going to make our design decisions about? And Apple just doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, in fact, specifically they said, our secret weapon is our ability to co-design these amazing chips with the system teams and the product designers as they are imagining possibilities, which is one of the reasons here they are 4 years in, and they have already considerably exceeded the performance of the first edition.
If you're a chip designer, isn't that a great feeling to know exactly where your chip is going to be used? Yeah. I would assume, instead of having to be like, oh, the marketing people say that, the partners say and all of this. And it's like, no, once they get alignment on it inside Apple, that's it.
And what's funny is the only other competition to them in the ARM area was from people that came out of Apple.
At this point,
Nuvia.
Back to Qualcomm,
If they hadn't lost those guys, then no one would be anywhere.
But that proves the point, because these same guys went to Nuvia, which was then acquired by Qualcomm, and Qualcomm has released this new Snapdragon Elite with that technology. But that's old technology, right?
It's not.
Current.
There is a handful of people. And
it's still a general purpose chip for a variety of machines, so it doesn't have that built-in ability to design specifically for the hardware. Yeah. And I think you can see that in the Snapdragon Elite. It's good. It just doesn't keep. Apple's already ahead of it they compare it to the M3 because Yeah, they can't compare it to the M4.
Well, I mean, and Tim's said things like, well, the phone still has a lot of legacy components. Like eventually, I think Apple wants to make the whole thing. Like, it's just like you open up I think at some point, if Apple's vision is you open it up and there's a display, there's a chip, there's a battery, like, and it does all the things that it needs to do there. And so I think that's the. They want to internalize that because it allows them to innovate. I mean, Apple is not good at integrating with other people. What they're really good at is vertical integration. And this is a huge advantage. And as all these components keep on getting smaller and need to be faster and with less power, it's very, very hard to take components and kind of Swiss Army knife them together, and try to have them compete. Someone was asking about the. In office hours, asking about the Aura. Remember is it Aura?
Aura Ring? Yeah.
No. The Aurora. It was Aura was Aura or Ara or Area. Was it Area?
Project Aura?
Aura, yeah. That was
from Google. Yeah.
They're like, why didn't that work? And I was like,
because
because
modular really phone design.
It's really exciting, except that all those pieces are not going to work together forever. It's just like, and it was just too complicated.
Or ever. I don't think they ever got like a string.
I don't think they did.
Their system never posted. It was a great idea. It was
out of Motorola when Google acquired them. Yeah.
I have a list of ideas that I love, even though I know that they're not great ideas and nobody wants them. And modular phones is definitely one of them.
Well, kind of followed in the footsteps is the framework, and the framework laptop is a success.
That is
roughly the same
phone,
idea.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be waterproof, and also it's not a single package that has to be as compact as possible. And also, people are more they're more attracted to the idea of why do I have to get rid of this entire laptop when really all I want is. I want to switch from Intel to AMD. Okay, that's a huge change, but
it's amazing because you can do that with the framework. You can take an Intel framework and put an AMD chip in it, which is really remarkable.
The idea that you can upgrade. You can have bought a laptop 3 years ago, and now your needs change, and now you really need something that's more heavy duty, more powerful. And it's not just adding more memory, adding more storage, it's changing out wanting an HDMI port built in or wanting an Ethernet port built in. So now you can basically take the entire daughter board, swap it out. But then they're also willing to say, well, gee, you still have this 3-year-old Intel chip that's still perfectly fine for a lot of stuff. We will let you put it in a case and use it as a thin desktop.
Yeah,
it's like, honestly, I have not been tempted to get a Windows laptop since Apple got its act together with a MacBook. But if I got one, oh my goodness, would I love to have? I'd love to have one of their laptops because it's just such a great idea.
I had the 13 for a long time and ran Linux on it. I gave it away. I don't know who got it, and it was part of Leo's garage sale at one point. Somebody has it, and I hope they've treated it well and upgraded it to AMD and all of that. Yeah, so it's possible. I mean, modular is possible. There was a lot of thinking after Framework came out that maybe other manufacturers would do this, but no, they all see the same advantage Apple does with a single kind of highly compact device. You can make it better, cheaper, faster.
Yeah, I mean, when you put things together with glue instead of screws, that's much cheaper.
Yeah.
And to be frank, if the public were 100% clamoring at the castle walls for upgradable storage, upgradable RAM on every laptop, no company would even think about not doing it. You can see even on Windows, you only see that because there's a Windows laptop for every market out there. And a lot of the market is people who are buying them by the hundreds, and they need to be able to, they can't just can an entire laptop because it needs to be deployed to a department that needs more storage. So I don't think it's an evildoer's sort of perspective, but I like the idea that if anybody has ever said, oh, but it's impossible to do that, to do upgradable storage, upgradable RAM in a modern laptop, that you would hate the trade-offs. Like, okay, here is a Framework laptop. Show me what trade-offs I'm giving up for this.
It's not unified memory. I mean, let's face it. So it's a little slower. It's off on the memory bus instead of in the die. Apple has some advantages there.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's I don't know if I put it in like last week's show notes or the week after. There is a master Mac hacker that has a shop where they will modify a motherboard on the old Intel platform. So if you want to have modular storage, it will like have modular storage. And he had released a video just a couple of weeks ago in which he actually created an upgrade platform for storage on Apple Silicon Macs. So it's not as though it can suddenly take. It's not something you could do yourself. You would have to ship. You would have to send the laptop to his shop to have this thing surgically grafted in. But they don't have to cut any. He found room for it inside the case. I don't know what it does for heating or what it does for ventilation inside the thing. But at that point, you can buy memory modules that he creates and upgrade it whenever you want, up to 2 terabytes. And he released some casual benchmarks that said that, well, it's not as though, yeah, it's slower than unified memory, but it's not as though like you will really notice it unless you are doing some pretty intensive stuff. So I don't know. It's the only thing that I would use that as an example of is, again, to oppose the idea of, oh, well, it's impossible to do it, what Apple is doing, like without having replaceable storage. I think that they've simply decided that here's the complexity we would have to add to our own engineering to make this work. Here's the complexity we would have to add in order to support people actually doing it outside of Apple. And here's the numbers of how many more Macs we would sell, MacBooks we would sell because we have this feature. And that last number was just not high enough to justify any of the other trouble that's going to have to go through.
Speaking of trouble, there was some trouble in Indonesia. The government in Indonesia was going to ban the iPhone 16. It wasn't even clear if they meant new iPhone 16s coming in for sale in the country or tourists carrying iPhone 16s. Yeah. There was some concern over that. The government minister that's in charge of this actually, and this is I saw the headlines and I thought, well, let's take a look at the actual statement, like in the Indonesian press, and he actually said, I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was like, and also it's not only is it not lawful to sell it in Indonesia, also it's not licensed to work on our networks. And he's actually said, if you see somebody using an iPhone 16, you should report it to the police. Jeez.
Which makes you wonder if you're just a tourist who came in.
There are a lot of tourists in Bali and other places carrying iPhones. Yeah. So Apple, which obviously Apple didn't like this, initially offered them $10 million. Yeah. They are now proposing to invest almost $100 million in Indonesia over 2 years.
Yeah. The original kerfuffle was that they had there was some sort of an agreement of some billions of dollars that they were going to invest. Indonesia felt that they fell short by like a small amount, and they basically lost their wig over it. And they said, "Oh no, you're cheaters, you're liars. No, we're not going to allow you to operate here." And given that like Indonesia is like the fifth most populous nation, it is a huge market. Like Apple is very well motivated to make sure that people can still spend their money on Apple things in Indonesia.
They say the iPhone hasn't met a 40% domestic content requirement. And that means, I mean, that's pretty hard for the iPhone to do that. I don't know what country you could do that in except China. But I guess Apple's going to, or India. Yeah, because they're building them now. Well, they're assembling them in India, but are they Indian parts? Is the question.
Ooh, I have to double check that.
Yeah,
It's a little all over the place. I mean, most of these things get assembled, and I don't think they're making everything from scratch.
Yeah, you can assemble it in Brazil or India or Indonesia, but you got to have somebody who can make all those little fiddly bits.
Yeah.
Well, and Taiwan is obviously
makes the chips, or the main CPU anyway.
But still, that is super significant. Like 20 to 25% in the next year or so. I think 20 to 25% of all iPhones sold everywhere are going to have Indian origin, and that's up from like just 12% the year before. So Apple is clearly moving things up. Well, Tima, the largest, like the Samsung of India, just bought a huge iPhone manufacturer. So basically now there's sorry, thank you very much. So now there's competition between Foxconn and this other company to again ramp up a supply, ramp up manufacturing. So that's a pretty big deal.
Well, and there's obviously a concern of tariffs.
Yes.
That's a big piece
Barron's,
of the puzzle.
I saw an article in Barron's that says it could add $240 to the cost of an iPhone. And President-elect Trump could actually make that happen on January 20th with the signature of a pen, because he has emergency powers when it comes to China and tariffs. So he could
it'll be interesting to see. I mean,
change that.
So far, Apple's been pretty good at avoiding these things.
Tim Cook's in there.
I'm sure there's a lot of conversations.
Tim talked their way out of it the last time.
Right.
I'm sure that they still did pay a tariff, but it was way lower. And also, he's talking about 60% tariffs on all China exports from China, but it doesn't affect it's not 60% of the retail purchase price of an iPhone. It's not. It doesn't involve costs of marketing, overheads, a whole bunch of other stuff like that. So it's a smaller percentage. So the $240 is if they were forced to pay a full 60% per unit of phones that land in the United States. I suspect that would be a lot lower because of, again, Tim's diplomacy and also being able to land a bunch of phones from India. Who knows what their capacity is going to be like by the time the tariffs become a really big deal? Because I think that I was reading about that new acquisition, and they're manufacturing something to 6 to 10 million iPhones per beat, and I'm not sure if any one supplier in India could keep up with that iPhone demand in the United States. So Apple certainly wouldn't go for two-tier where congratulations, you happen to get one in the lottery that was shipped from India, so here's another $800 back. It's going to be a big mess.
Adam Levine writing in Barron says 45 to 50% of the cost of an iPhone is imported content. 60% of that would come to a tax of $216 to $240 per iPhone 16. So it is not on the total price. You're right, but there's enough of it. Yeah. It's all up in the air. No one knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. The tactic that Tim supposedly took last time was that, hey, look, if you make it harder for us to sell iPhones in the United States, given how much market share that we have in the United States, you're basically handing a gift to Samsung, and you don't want to hand a gift to Samsung, do you, Mr.
Exactly.
President? And that was the chisel that he used to try to get some leeway there. So.
Yeah, it's politics and deal making. Tim Cook did it 4 years ago. He'll do it again. I think I mean, that's when people say, "Oh, how dare Tim Cook congratulate Donald Trump?" It's like, it's politics, man, and it's their business, and this is how they have to do it. Is you got to figure out a way, and that's why he was, at that Austin factory where they assembled Mac Pros, and
since 2013, but
all that stuff.
It's okay. Yeah,
from 100% Chinese components. Yeah,
right. Mark Gurman writing in Bloomberg says Cook will be able to tout a large number of iPhones now made in India, and of course, India is run by Narendra Modi, a Trump ally. He also can continue to argue taxing the iPhone will only help non-American rivals, as you mentioned. Of course, the new Mac Pro launches presumably in 2025. I imagine we'll see another little tour of the factory, and that's good PR for both parties, and probably an important concession. There's also new Arizona plant for building chips for the legacy nodes. This is part of the CHIPS Act, the Chips and Science Act. But of course, Trump can claim it for himself if he goes and visits the plant. There's a new campus in North Carolina, Gurman points out, that's been on and off again. It slowed down the work on the development this year, but says it still plans to open the office. Another way to show Apple's commitment to the U.S. would be to finish that. He's done all this. So, and Tim Apple is well liked, I think, in the White House. Mark points out there was reason for Apple not to like the Biden administration, including Biden not stepping in the Massimo debacle.
Well, and also, I mean, I think that the math with Europe will change. When Trump's in Trump may use that as a wedge. He may want to use it as telling Europeans to back off. It's a fun way for him to swing a stick. So
Apple is currently being sued by the Justice Department for antitrust.
Although it does look like the folks that they're bringing in aren't much different than Lena Khan, and which is really interesting because a lot of folks in Silicon Valley thought that. I mean, one of the big reasons they wanted to get rid of the Biden administration is they wanted to get rid of Lena Khan, and it doesn't sound like the incoming FCC point is going to be that much different. They may not have gotten what they.
The FCC is a hard. The FCC had. Do you mean the FTC? You mean the FTC?
I'm sorry, FTC. Sorry, FTC. But
FCC has a horror show. But yeah,
in all of the cases around this, going after, and I apologize. Yeah, not FCC, but FTC. But in all of those areas where Apple and some of the other tech companies were under pressure, it doesn't look like that pressure is going to let up that much in the new administration. It seems that the people they're bringing in are going to be not maybe as aggressive, but close to it. So I don't think Apple got a lot of space there.
Reuters reported that the ads for iPhone workers for Foxconn India were a little bit discriminatory. Apparently, those ads ended after the Reuters report. Apple has no comment. The ads for iPhone workers in India said that women must be applying for the positions with Foxconn must be unmarried, age 18 to 32. Which obviously you couldn't do that in the U.S. But
that's very specific.
It's kind of weirdly specific.
It's weird. Yeah.
Anyway, that Apple put the kibosh on that, I think, pretty quickly. Although, as Reuters points out, it's not clear if the ads ended or the discriminatory hiring ended.
Yes.
Maybe the ads didn't continue, but the rules did. We don't know. Let's see. Apple is starting to sell ads in Apple News. That's interesting.
Yeah. They used to have the third party do it, but now they're doing it all in-house. That's interesting. It means that they're definitely muscling in. They're definitely trying to make advertising a bigger part of the wedge on a future 6 colors chart.
This is a story from Sarah Fisher in Axios. This is the first time they've sold directly into Apple News. It's not the first time they've had ads in Apple News. It's just that somebody else was selling them.
Yeah. I realize that Apple does have an ad platform. It's just that we don't see it in the terms of punch the monkey ads. We see it in the terms of why am I being recommended this app and not this other one? Things like that.
Interestingly, if an ad is put on your content as a publisher, you'll get 70% of the ad revenue. Apple will keep 30%. So that's kind of I haven't done Apple News in a while. The only reason I don't use Apple News, and I don't know why they persist with this, is you can't link out. You can only send a link to Apple News, not to the publication.
It made it absolutely useless to me. That was so frustrating.
I can't use it because every time I'm reading news, I want to save a link so that we can talk about it. But I'm not going to put a whole bunch of links to Apple News in our rundown. NBC Universal used to sell at those ads, but that relationship ends at the end of this year. And as we mentioned before, Apple is going to work with Taboola.
Yeah, that's a really good look, isn't it?
It's so good.
Not sarcastically, yeah.
It's such a good look. But anyway. All right, let's take a little break. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Yanako, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. Let's see what time it is. I think... should we go to the picks of the week, John Ashley, producer man? Or is it too early?
A touch early. A touch
early. All right, we'll come back and we'll go to the picks in a bit. But there are some more stories we could talk about in just a bit. I don't like this story. I'm not going to do this story, but anyway, I will because it's we need them. Apple shares the most popular podcasts of 2024. Boo hiss. I don't know how they know what the most popular podcasts are. I guess
everybody who uses the podcast app, they know.
You have to use the podcast app. Yeah. So it's really the most popular podcast on Apple's podcast app. Let's make that clear. Number 1, The Daily, New York Times, Michael Barbaro, Crime Junkie. It's always the same 4. The Joe Rogan Experience, Dateline, Smartless, Huberman Lab, This American Life. Used to be really dominated This American Life.
They got used to just be number 1 for
for years.
2 decades. Yeah.
And of course, the newcomers, Jason and Travis Kelce, doing very well with their podcast. I've seen Spotify, I think, say it was number 3 on the Spotify list. Then NPR's up first, another news podcast, and Morbid. So death, news, health, and politics, plus a little football.
Yeah.
Top news shows, Tucker Carlson Show, number 1. 3, Mortal Sin, Drowning Creek, The Rise and Fall of Ruby Frank. Top series, Serial, still up there.
What I thought was interesting was that the only one that I actually listened to is This American Life. Like of all the top 7, I was like, I feel like I'm out of whack because everything I listen to is more vertical than that. That's not any of those.
Number 1 episode, you would have thought it would be Joe Rogan's interview with Donald Trump. That was number 2. Number 1 is Crime Junkie, Serial Killer, The Alphabet Murders, Part 1. Interestingly, Part 2 isn't even on the list, so I don't know.
Evidently, that fizzled out
well.
quickly. Yeah, exactly. like, never mind.
Yeah, never. Well, it seemed like a good idea. Most shared shows, like people send it out as links. The Huberman Lab, Scamanda. I don't even know what's Wiser Than Me with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, The Daily, The Bible in a Year. You need to read this. You need to hear this. The Bible in a Year, The Bible Recap, very popular. Who Killed JFK is in there. Most shared episodes. Anyway, a lot of stats, but just a reminder, this is we're not on there because I don't know why we're not on there.
We've never decided to dig into the tragedy of somebody being murdered and sensationalize it for profit.
There we go. You know, I did at one point. This was mostly when we were trying to sell the company. Didn't work. I thought, maybe Twitch should do a true crime show. We could do that. I just lost my audio. What did I do? I unplugged. Oh, there we go. I thought we could do that. And I was looking for a true crime, and I thought the strange death of Adrian Lamo might make a good... I'll give this to anybody who wants a true crime series, because we're not going to do it. Because while Adrian... It's said that he killed himself. I don't think he did, because he had stuff taped to his thigh. There was some weird stuff going on. And I thought it'd be a very good true crime. Should we do that, Alex? You need a true crime podcast.
I could do a really interesting true crime one, but I'd have to get some permission. But I have a lot of data on.
So you know some
one.
True crimes.
I know one
from
really
your dad.
Well. Yeah.
From your dad. Yeah. His father's a
might
prosecutor.
be too hot. It's a really hot one.
It's recent.
It's not recent, but it comes up every once in a while. Yeah, so I'd have to. It's a really. I'm not going to get into it on the show, but it would be a good true crime podcast.
Have you ever thought about doing a true crime?
No, I have not. I'm so busy doing stuff. I mean, I got so many shows. I'm like,
you don't need another show.
I looked at. I mean, it's interesting, but the problem is if you get one that's really interesting, there's going to be a lot of energy around it, and then people are going to send me, threaten me on Twitter, I was just like, I don't have the energy.
Also, unless I really have a problem with true crime podcasts and Dateline, unless they're talking about a story where every family member who knew the person is long gone. Right. I can't imagine anything worse than, even worse than not just true crime podcasts, but so many of these are being done by people who aren't journalists. They haven't been trained in sensitivity. They don't understand the import of what they're doing But
it sells, baby.
I think I think the ones that I'm interested in, if they're going to do them, are ones that are about somebody who probably didn't do it, and we're uncovering a bunch of things. Using journalism using journalism to get someone who was wrong. Because the problem is that once you get accused in a court of law, your chances of winning are once you're charged, once it goes to court in a criminal, your chances of winning are about 5%. And it's just everything stacked up against you unless you have really good lawyers. So I think that evening out that weight, that's interesting.
I know why John Ashley wouldn't let us go to the picks. We've not yet done the Vision Pro segment.
Where's the music?
You were just.
I was ready. I was ready.
What do you know?
I thought
it's time to talk the Vision Pro.
I gave him enough heads up.
No. So I was trying to look through the dock, and I wasn't in Splash Shop to be able to get it ready, and I scrambled.
He's a very good scrambler. I have these visions. I don't see him. I can't see him. I have these visions of him kind of off looking at a book or something and running back to the console and hitting the button. Let's see. Well, the weekend is here, so to speak. I know it's only Tuesday, but the weekend's Vision Pro. Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
I only saw pieces of it. I was traveling in my bandwidth. I was bandwidth impaired for the last couple of days, so I haven't been able to see it. What did you think?
I mean, it's a music video, so it's all about the visuals. It's not about the narrative. But what I liked about it and what I took away from it is I'm sure that Submerged had VFX, right? But it was meant to be naturalistic. This is not meant to be naturalistic, so you can see the VFX throughout, and they look really good. And I thought that was a really great example of what do you do with a VFX heavy immersive? How does that work? And it was beautiful. It was there was some very mind bending kind of like you look over there and through a window and over here and you see different things, and it's very clearly special effects. But I mean, that's really what it was. It was all about the visuals and, his music playing. Well, I don't know what the story is. It didn't really make any sense. He's in an ambulance and then he's like on a bus or what. It doesn't matter. But I thought it's really just a pure, here's the kind of imagery we can do in an immersive space. So that's what I took away from it, is to see something that's very visual effects forward. And that was the goal, I'm sure, of doing it.
Yeah, I think it'll be, unfortunately, because we had all this spherical stuff years ago, Nuke and a bunch of other tools already have a lot of the spherical stereo compositing all built in. So doing those effects are something that is a known quantity. In fact, 180 is a little bit easier than the 360 that a lot of us were doing. So that's really useful, is that those tools have been around. Obviously, Apple's magic sauce makes it just a little bit better. But it's So I saw pieces of it. Again, I saw little sections of it because I was having bandwidth issues in the hotel. So, but they have another one coming out, I think, this week or next week as well. And this one, I think, is more. It's interesting because it's more of a solo artist playing for you, or at least that's how it's being sold. Which I think is actually going to make way more sense for the Vision Pro than a lot of
kind of like
things.
Alicia Keys' video that they released with the
a little. It'll be interesting to see how many camera angles they use. I mean, I think that a lot of times what I want to see is just one. One really, I just want to sit.
I don't need them looking right in my eyes, right? I want them to just sort of I want to be a fly on the wall and not somebody that they're singing to. Because that made me very uncomfortable with Alicia.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
My favorite part
called
is
Concert for One. It features a British artist named Ray. It's coming Friday in a global release. It's not out yet.
Yeah. I do like these ones where they don't work very hard to make it an immersive experience, where it's just we put a bubble camera in the audience and you are free to look wherever you want. Someone performing in front of a band, because sometimes you kind of want to see John Entwistle, while all the pyrotechnics are going on between three other band members who are trying to be the front man at the same time. Sometimes you want to see, hey, what's that happening that's kind of behind that other riser over there, and you're seeing somebody who's prepping hardware for a guitar change or something like that. That is really immersive, because there are very few experiences that you can really absolutely nail in VR. One of them is standing still in one spot and not being able to walk forward, backward, left, or right, but being able to turn your head and listen to something and watch something. And so being an audience member is definitely one of those things. It sounds boring, but I've never felt more immersed than those times when people were doing these presentations from studio audiences at TV tapings, audiences at concerts, things like that. I would love to see a turnkey solution for something like that.
So Ray is more like a big band experience. They recorded the set at Air Studios in London, a 20-piece band. She does R&B, jazz, and pop. And they say from the best seat in the house. So that implies, well, we don't know what that means.
No, I think it could be, though. It could be one of those things. Now, the hard part is with 20 people, it's hard to fit that into a 180 in a way that works. But we'll see. We'll see what they look like. Because what the problem is, again, is that what makes sense is 10 to 20 feet. And, some people are more than 10 to 20 feet, maybe. But it'll be. What I love is that Apple keeps experimenting. So we get one thing, we're going to get another thing. They're going to keep on, showing us different looks and feels of where they're going. So I think that's interesting. So it's good.
Do you think that The Weeknd is trying out, and his management team and his label, the idea of releasing music videos in immersive?
I think Apple said, "Hey, we've got this great idea. We'd love to do this with you." They had a bunch of meetings with his management. Then he came in and said, "Hey, that sounds great. How much?" That'll be $1 million.
How much?
And they were like, "Sure." Yeah. They pulled a dial up. I don't know anything by the way of this, but I'm saying I've been in these kind of meetings. So it's a big brand comes up and says, we have a vision for what this could be. that it could be in spatial. And then what would you like to do if we did that? And then he brings in a director and they do the thing, and there's a bunch of guidance of, well, this will work in the camera and this won't work in the camera, and this is and everyone goes back and forth, and he gets a big check, and then they get something that has the weekend in it. And so I think that's probably how my guess is that's a pretty good idea of how that worked. But I think that's what Apple can do that no one else can do. Well, no one. I mean, Meta's done some of that as well. They've done, worked with artists, and paid, to have artists do stuff inside of the Meta Quest and so on and so forth. But I think Apple can continue to go down that path. I will say that I finally, I have a lot of screens. So when there was a virtual screen on the Vision Pro, I was not that interested because I was like, whatever. It's not enough screens. I don't go away. I was on a plane this morning. I actually woke up this morning in New York.
Wow.
And
thank you for rushing home to do this.
There's only one flight that gets home before the show. Wow. So anyway, and it does require very early. But I was on a plane, and I had to get the ticket at the last minute. And so I ended up in the back row, and in the back row, you can't open your laptop. So I was like, I'm going to try this. And I took the, I hadn't even tried to connect them, or anything else. And I opened my laptop just enough so I get my fingers over the keyboard, because that's all I could open it up for the thing. And then I opened up the screen, and I got this giant, what felt like a, 55-inch screen TV, thing. And I was like typing away notes, and I opened up Final Cut. I did a whole bunch of stuff on the laptop, and it totally worked. I have to admit, I pooed it, but it totally worked. I was like, I'm going to use this all the time.
Selling point for the Vision Pro, perfect for the economy seat.
If you spend $4,500 on a headset, you can save money on the seat.
Yeah.
So
how did you type though? So you left the laptop kind of open a little bit.
It was open. It was kind of like cracked open, and I could sit there and just type away, and I everything. It just felt like it was a big giant. I mean, it was pretty nice. Now I understand. People have been saying that this is incredible, and I was like, yeah, is it as good as the 9 monitors that I have on my desk? I don't think so. But in an environment like that, because I have a little laptop too. I don't even have a 16. I mean, I don't travel a lot. Well, I'm going to now, but I haven't for a long time. And so I've got a little 14-inch Intel Air, or Intel MacBook Pro or whatever. So it's like a tiny little thing that I just haven't bothered to upgrade because I don't get out of the house for work very often. And anyway, so I thought it was, old computer headset using Sequoia or whatever. And
nice. How about that? Has anybody tried that widescreen yet, or is that not out?
It's in the developer beta, and I haven't been adventurous enough to put the development beta on, but Jason has.
I have.
You?
I did it.
What do you think?
Looks really good. I'm not sure if I'm willing to go to Mark Gurman's level and say it is the killer app, but it's a very good reason to get a Vision Pro if you are a very certain kind of person, because if you travel a lot, because the ultra wide is a little extreme. Although it's kind of amazing, it's just like it wraps all the way around you. But even just the wide view gives you a lot more space, and I find it very clear. I know some people don't, but I find it pretty clear and very usable.
Is there distortion at all?
No. It's designed to basically be kind of a magic curved screen, so that you're just wherever you look, it's sort of right in front of you. But no, it's very well done. And the quality is very good. And with the ultra wide, you've basically got two giant monitors, but there's no seams. It's just all wrapping around. And what I find useful sometimes in Vision Pro in general is taking an app that I'm only using occasionally and just kind of putting it off to the side. And I can look way over there and adjust it if I need to, but mostly it's out of sight. And you can do that on the Mac now, where you are sitting there working maybe in the center, but if you're in ultra wide mode, you can put drag Slack or Discord or whatever and put it off in the corner where you're not going to see it all the time, or your calendar even. But then you can go like this and it's there. Plus, there's some apps like Final Cut is a good example, where having a very, very wide window is actually pretty great, because you've got a bunch of ancillary stuff on the sides that you might need to look at or drag something from, but most of the work is happening in the center, that it's pretty powerful for. So I think it's a great feature. I don't know if it's going to sell more Vision Pros, but I'd say that It is one of the best things going on Vision Pro, being able to have a giant Mac display with you.
I think with the new content and with the updates, it doesn't sell more. It just makes the current owners more
feel
confident.
better about themselves, yes, and their bad decisions, yes, for sure.
Yeah, like it's just like, okay, this is cool. This is something fun.
Okay, that's your Vision Pro segment. This is audio.
Vision Pro. Oh, Vision Pro.
Right there, isn't it? It's like you're sitting right there.
Vision Pro.
I was ready this time, Leo.
Yeah. Porch pirates appear to be, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, Ben Lovejoy writing, accessing AT&T data to track iPhone deliveries. Oh, that's our worst nightmare.
Yeah. Apparently people inside are basically teaming up, selling the information about, and a $1,000 iPhone is going to be delivered to this address at this time, and and because they have the tracking information, they can track the delivery, and basically within a minute of it being dropped off at.
How do they get the track? How do they? You have to be an AT&T insider somehow.
So someone's breaking the law inside AT&T and is selling this information. Yeah.
Wow. This, by the way, I should give credit to CNET. This is Tyler Lacoma. Got the scoop on this. Wow.
Yeah, apparently this is a big deal everywhere, where, again, there are people inside the shipping companies, for instance, who are pairing up with burglary rings, crime rings, to, again, tip people off that this expensive thing is going to be left out in the open at this place. Sometimes drivers are also involved, not just with Apple products, but all like expensive phones and electronics, where they were going to the driver is in on it, and they're going to deliver it to an address that is kind of nearby, but not at the actual address where someone might be waiting for it. And so someone is right behind the truck to grab it as soon as they can log in that, oh, yes, this was absolutely delivered to the correct address.
Wow.
And because most of these delivery places, they don't act, even though you might check off require a signature for delivery, even people who are not criminals, it's like we're just going to drop it off without a signature, and that's fine. And then you're really out of luck because the Apple, Google, whoever, and the shipping company are going to trade off on whose responsibility it is. Meanwhile, you've got the clock is ticking down on when you can basically ask for a chargeback. It's really terrible. There was also frequently it comes up on Reddit and other forums where people who are ordering stuff from the Apple Store using the Apple app and asking for like same-day delivery, it just never shows up, because the same-day delivery route, that last leap of it, is it's an Uber driver who comes to the store, picks it up, and drops off your house. And apparently it's not uncommon for the Uber driver to simply steal it. And then whose word is it that they take, or how long is it going to take for it to unwrap? It's like it seems like if you have to have an expensive piece of electronics shipped to you, you just got to be ready for it to be stolen. And the amount of trouble that I will now go through to avoid having something simply dropped off that I've paid for. I will drive 20 miles to a depot to pick it up at a depot. I will drive 40 miles. I'll drive 60 miles to the one Google store that's nearby to buy a Google phone like at the store and pick it up, because again, it's not as though every single thing gets stolen, but once it gets stolen, none of these sellers, Apple isn't alone, it's everybody, none of them are really proactive and saying, oh my God, that's terrible, we're going to make this good, we're going to cancel the billing, we're going to ship you out a new one. It's like, oh, well, we've opened a ticket. Check back in a few days. Like,
I imagine that's because there are also people who say, I didn't get it when they did get it.
Yeah.
Right.
That doesn't help you. And also, again, the number of people who the driver isn't in on it, it hasn't been stolen, but somebody at the depot broke into it, took out the phone, put in like a bag of rice, sealed it back up, and sent it on its way. It just seems like how can you possibly win?
Right. Courage Part 2. Apple is phasing out the Lightning to headphone jack adapter. At one point, I bought a dozen or a half dozen of these because I just couldn't find them, and I probably still have a bunch of them. But if you didn't, I don't know why you would need one anymore, since Lightning doesn't exist anymore on new phones, and headphone jacks, well, you probably don't have any wired headphones anymore. Apple's adapter sold out in the online store in the U.S. and most other countries, but you could still go to France, Denmark, Finland, Norway, or Sweden if you really need one. You may remember these came in the box with when they first phased out the headphone jack, but pretty quickly. I still have Type-C to wired. Apple doesn't sell those. Maybe they do sell those. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah,
I have. I've got a couple in my bag. I keep them.
Those, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So 2016 they phase out the headphone jack. 2024 they phase out the adapter. First they came for the headphone jack, and I said nothing. Then they came for the adapter, and I said nothing. And now
because I wasn't using that phone anymore.
I have to admit, like when the first when they started with USB-C, I was like, I really like my Lightning, and I got all this stuff with Lightning. Now, like the handful of things that still have a Lightning connector, you're like, I went on my trip this last weekend, and I forgot I didn't take a Lightning cable, and so then I'm trying to figure out how to charge my headset and
I literally bought another pair of AirPod Pros just so I wouldn't have to use the Lightning adapter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't that sad? $250 so I could have a Type-C connection.
Well, no, it's even sadder. Every time I connect to like my Sony earbuds or my Pixel earbuds, I see the guilt creating ghost. It still says Andy's AirPods, the AirPods that I lost like 4 years ago, and is still somewhere in the house, I'm sure. I still have the case for it, but it's gone to the land of ghosts and winds. But I can't bring myself to have it forget this item, because otherwise I lose one of the friends I made along the way.
All right, now we can take a break and get ready for your picks of the week. Coming up next, you are watching MacBreak Weekly. And of course, we thank our great contributors, Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and Jason Snell. But we also thank another kind of contributor, our great Club Twit members. Thank you, who make all of this possible. We've been looking at ad sales for 2025, and it's a pretty grim picture. I thought maybe after the election, people were just waiting to see what happened. I don't know. It has not exactly opened up, and so it's really becoming more and more vital that we get the club going and get people to support us through the club. $7 a month is not a lot. You get all the shows we do. You get access to the Discord, and you get ad-free versions, by the way, of all the shows. You get video for shows that we only do audio in public, like Hands on Windows and Hands on Macintosh. You would get special events. We've got John Ashley just told me he's going to do a little special event of him upgrading his computer. I think that'll be fun. Micah's Crafting Corner. We do a coffee thing every once in a while. I think we got a tasting coming up. Stacy's Book Club. In other words, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the club is really full of wonderful, interesting people. The people who support what we do and who like to talk about tech. So I think you would like being in there. So if you would consider twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. First 2 weeks are free. You get a trial. If you're not convinced, try it for free for 2 weeks. And we now have a referral program. So when you sign up, you'll get a special link. Anybody uses that link to sign up gets you a free month. So, if you got a lot of friends who aren't yet members of the club, you could probably pay for your club membership for some time to come. twit.tv/clubtwit. I really, really appreciate your support. It is going forward more and more important, to be honest, if we want to keep doing what we're doing. We've done everything we can. We've shrunk as small as we can get. Got rid of the studio, cut shows. Unfortunately, had to lay off people. We're pretty much down to the bone now. So twit.tv/clubtwit. And thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Pick of the week time. Let's spend some Alex Lindsay's money. Alex?
So I've been building these little phone rigs. I've talked about this, these little interactive phone rigs, an iPhone rig. And one of the big things that you get into is how do you get all the USB stuff to get connected? Ooh. So how do I connect USB to, because you've got hard drive, you've got maybe an external monitor, you have, you want to plug that all into your iPhone, you have maybe a mix pre or something else that's there. And it's been cobbled together. You find a clamp and then you attach it to the rig and it's all painful. Well, Condor Blue just came out with this, and this is a USB. Let's see if I can get my face out of it. It's a mountable
dock for the iPhone.
Well, it's not a dock. it is a what this is this attaches to a camera rig that you would have, except that it has quarter 20s. See, it's got like quarter 20s on the bottom. It's got a cold shoe mount. The problem with my Sony is it wants to focus on my face.
I got it right here.
You got it right there. So it's got all it's basically has the same connections that you would get with another little piece that you'd clamp on, except that it can screw straight into your rig that you might have for your iPhone. And this has been a big pain point for a lot of us that are building these rigs, is how do you attach how do you show us what it looks
like attached to your iPhone?
I don't have. I'm afraid I got back here right before the show. I was going to try to attach it to something, but I'll show it in a few. But a lot of times, so what I'm using is a lot. You can get a rig that you put your phone into. And they don't. The funny is, a lot of people that are talking about it don't actually. Yeah, there you go. You can see them attaching it. It's a very simple rig, but you get the idea.
That's really cool.
Getting these hubs. It's just like a media hub, like you would get from many other companies, except that it's made out of metal and it screws straight into the phone rig that you're building. I'm building I have this really complex rig that I'm building with a Sony camera, but I'm trying to build a simplified version as well with an iPhone that you can do two-way communication with people in the field. And this is this was a big piece of that puzzle, because you're always trying to figure out where to put the clamp and then how to find one that has all the things going out the right direction. And so this is anyway, it's expensive for a hub. It's not a very expensive item overall. I think it's about $80 or something like that.
$89. That's not bad. Yeah. And it comes in space gray or raven black.
Black. And the only problem with the black one is I lose it all the time. Like every time I set it down,
shadows.
Like right before I did this, I was like, where did I just put that? I was like looking at it before
the Blackbird.
I pulled it out.
It's like stealth. It's a stealth.
It's like stealth. It doesn't look like anything descript, so it just kind of blends into everything. But I'll show the rig in more detail maybe next week.
Actually, and this company, Condor Blue, it's a good tip in general. They sell a lot of interesting.
They sell really high end. I mean, this is not just for phones. This is Condor Blue there's kind of like there's small rig. I have a lot of small rig stuff, mostly because I got into it because of the rigs that I have. So I got into small rig, and then there's Tilta, and then you go up to Condor Blue, and then after that you start talking about like Wooden Camera and a bunch of specialty companies. We all know what they all are. Everybody's got a rig, and you look at it, and there's like this.
You know what it is immediately.
You measure everybody up. So I have the cheapest rig mostly. Which is there's newer is in the pecking order. The newer rigs are below the small rigs, which is what I have, and then Tilta is a little higher, and then. Again, Condor Blue they're American made. They're out of LA, and it's a good brand. Overall. So if you look at it, there's lots of camera rigs that they build, and then after that you go up to more expensive ones that are, and it jumps. The prices seem to double every time you go from one to the next.
Condor Blue with a K. Thank you. What a good tip. This looks kind of cool. I don't need it, but I want it.
When you see the rest of the rig, I'll show the rest of the rig.
That's a classic Alex Lindsay thing.
I have another.
But I want it.
It's a mix. I have some more pieces of the rig arriving this week. When I get the new rig put together a little bit more, it's absurd because it of course streams in binaural, surround from a phone, in HDR, because as you do, and it's in spatial. So it's a cool rig. So we'll show more when we get a little closer.
Andy Anatko, pick of the week.
2 picks of the week. One is a reminder that Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is still within the evil clutches of a $2 trillion super company, but you can watch it for free on Apple TV this Thursday and Friday, the 23rd and 24th. You do not have to subscribe to Apple TV to get it there. And if you haven't seen it in a while, please try to see it like on streaming there, because it is such a trip to see. You can actually see the shadows from like the layers of cells that are there. It is almost disconcerting to see it.
It's too clean.
Perfectly. It is quite wonderful. But my other pick of the week is Feedbin. I've been every once in a while I try to make a point of if there's a tool or a service that I rely on, I try to take a moment every year or so, every once in a while, to check out others to see if other services can do it better. I've been using Feedly for quite a while. chiefly because it's Reader for quite a while because it was pretty much what I was using. I switched to the new updated revolutionary version of Reader, which it's in beta. It's not quite finished yet. It's not feature complete yet. And I kind of needed something kind of better than that. And so I actually spent some time switching everything over to Feedbin Feedbin's been around for over 10 years. A lot of people that I know and respect use it a lot. I just never happened to click into it, or maybe it's because at the times when I was looking at it years ago, it wasn't quite what it was right now. I like it a lot because it gives me everything that I'm looking for. Primarily, the idea that it doesn't matter what screen I'm looking at and what operating system it runs and who made it, I can still get access to my feeds. Obviously,
it's web-based.
Yeah, it's web based.
Okay.
You can use when it has a page on the product site on actual dedicated apps that are compatible with it, and it's like all iOS, all Mac, all iPad, and like 1 or 2 lonely Android apps. But I discovered that you really don't need it because the phone interface, no matter what device you're using it on, whether you're using it on a desktop or using it on a phone, is so clean and so easy and so simple that it's exactly what I would be looking for. And it has so many really great features to organize everything so that when I'm preparing for MacBreak, I can just focus in on just the stuff that's Apple news. You can have within feeds, you can create other feeds that are just like anything that's on the barons.com site that references Apple or references the iPhone, make that into a separate feed if they don't have like a special, specific like Apple feed. Alerts, it integrates really well with third-party services. One of my previous picks of the week was raindrop.o, which is what I still use and love
and I'm using
bookmark
that.
organizers.
You convinced me, boy. We use that like
boy,
crazy.
was that was one of the greatest switches I ever made because it makes so many things so much easier, and it supports it so I can quickly send something to my bookmark manager to check it out later, send it out to other apps. It doesn't have a built-in integration into Blue Sky yet, so we're hoping to wait for that, but I'm sure that's going to be an in-demand feature. And that's assuming you can't simply roll it by yourself. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that it doesn't try to be super, super flashy. It attempts to be really, really attentive to the needs of people who need to keep on top of dozens, if not hundreds, of news sources and drill right down to, I need to check to see what's going on right now. Again, that alert about the 0 day that happened, came out about an hour or two ago. It was because it was so easy for me to have a Feedbin window open and click specifically on just a topic site that would only give me things that are breaking news. That made that so efficient. So it's all, and on top of all that, 30-day free trial. And after that's $5 a month. I hesitate to be this enthusiastic after only 2 days, but I can't find a single fault with it. It is exactly everything that I want, and I'm definitely be signing up for $5 a month. After initial giddy, irrational exuberance boils down, but I can't recommend it highly enough for somebody who needs to have a long curated list of feeds that they need to keep adding to and keep adding stuff to. I know that Jason's been recommending it because it has a bunch of other features for newsletters, and Jason's word is actually Jason having mentioned that last week on Blue Sky was, oh yeah, Feedbin. I haven't checked that out in a few years. I wonder what that's like. And he didn't lie. So it's a great service.
I'm going to definitely look at it because right now I use a web-based service called Sumi News, SUMI. But that's my daily, I do that more than anything else is look at feeds and select stuff for the show. And if it has direct integration to Raindrop, that will be a very nice feature.
And just to button something off, it's like a lot of RSS services and apps that I've used, including, again, the app that I was using for the past couple of months since I've recommended it, the new version of Reader, is like, oh, but we're doing more than just RSS feeds. You can also have your subreddits, and you can have your YouTube videos and comic strips from Comics Kingdom and the other subscription services. And that's nice, but I'm very, very much. It's more than what I want, and it complicates the experience. This other service is like it gives you just enough. Yes, it will allow you to subscribe to feeds of your podcasting, and they are RSS feeds after all. But it also made it, I'm not certain that it will become like a replacement for Pocket Casts on my phone, but the ability to very, very quickly see something. I want to check to see if there's a new episode, the Bugle dropped. If so, I want to download it here and now and actually play it, as opposed to, let me check your 100 and 300 different podcast feeds and then show you what's new. It's like, no, just let me check to see if there's a new Office Ladies podcast. And if so, let me download it and play it. So it's really nicely done. The last thing is that if you have newsletters, it can also give you a custom email address. So if you sign up for newsletters, it will automatically grab your newsletters and turn those into feeds as well. So it really is one window where I give, anytime I want to find out what's going on right now in any of 1,000 different topics, very, very great single dashboard. And again,
I am looking for something because the news reader I used and recommended in the past, Omnivore, got purchased and is shutting down at the end of the month. So I am looking for something that can do that. It was the same idea. I would use a custom address, and then it was a kind of a, because mailing lists, I don't know why they're so successful. It's more spam from my point of view. So something that can read the newsletters is great.
No, it's great.
They are a little bit rough, and you're also hitting the nail on the head of one of the problems that I was having, where it seems like every time I change to a different like RSS service or RSS app, most of them have some sort of an export command, but keeping the truth, as you call the central truth, consistent between experiences is so hard, and especially with, again, I don't want to be denigrating the new version of Reader, but one of the things is it's not quite complete yet, so it can't export your feeds yet. And so I finally bit the bullet yesterday and said, I'm going to spend 20 minutes seeing if there's a hack or a script I can do to automate the process. After 20 minutes, if I fail, I'm just going to put on a couple of movies and spend 2 hours manually exporting all of my specific reader feeds into this new thing, because I don't want to ever have to do that again. And it seems like this is a good service for, if you want to use a different app for a front end, it will let you do that. But your central truth will always be for this feed app. And it's, again, great stuff.
Nice. Thank you for the recommendation. I should have listened to Jason, but yeah.
Well, now you got two of us going on.
Now it's two. I think once it's two out of three, I have to
I just got the 30-day, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I did too.
Right.
It'll probably be 3.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how this works. This is how the Hive.
We help each other. That's right.
Spend money. We do.
Do I want to count the things that are in front of me right now that I bought during a pick of the week?
I know. Expensive friends.
Literally, my webcam is from a pick of the week.
Your pick, Jason, though, is another thing.
Yeah. So I'm glad Andy got into Feedbin. It is great. The newsletter thing is the thing that really started me down the path of using it all the time, because then I had not only some favorite news sources that have RSS, but all the newsletters I subscribe to also pour in there, and they just show up in the morning, and that's my morning reading, is that list, which is great. It has an excellent web interface, but there are also lots and lots and lots of clients, especially on iOS, that support Feedbin, and they can add their own nice UI on top of it.
So this is in addition to Feedbin.
Yes, ReadKit is my choice. It is an excellent iOS app. I use it on the iPad. That is my RSS reader of choice. It works with Feedbin. You log into Feedbin, and then it will use the Feedbin source. One of the things I really like about it, its interface really works for me. It has 3 different reader modes, so it will show you the text that's in the RSS enclosure, or it will show you the HTML rendered in a certain way that's in the RSS enclosure, or it will load the content of the web page it links to and display that instead. It's got a bunch of different ways of doing that, and you can set it per source, which is great because you might get one that looks great using type A, and then type B, it's really bad. So I've got some where I'm a New York Times subscriber. If I tap on a New York Times link, it just loads the New York Times page, and I make sure I'm logged in there, and I don't worry about it.
Don't want that though, right? I kind of want a reader version of it.
Well, it depends on what you want. And the style you can choose, and you can choose it per source. So I really like Reader. It's really nice. I also want to mention another good iOS RSS reader that also I believe works with Feedbin, which is called Unread. Unread is a very simple RSS reader, but it's it's really well designed. It's just very basic, and I think that's its appeal. But they just added a feature that Federico Fatici wrote about at Mac Stories today, which is very clever, and every RSS reader on iOS should do this, which is a shortcuts integration where you can literally say, I want to add this shortcut that I've got in the Shortcuts app to unread. And then when you're on an item, you can just, one of the commands that you can attach to that item is now that shortcut, which means that now you're sort of super powered in terms of taking those items and putting them in a bookmark or adding them to a spreadsheet or quoting them in a markdown of a blog post or whatever it is. And I love that. And I want to see more of that kind of automation support, because the idea that you just sort of like take a shortcut that you wrote and now here it is as a command inside an app, like, oh, give me more of that. I really like, it's not just you could share it and then choose a shortcut and all that. It's like literally it's in the UI of the app now because you designated it as a shortcut. So there are a lot of really great RSS readers out there. If you want to go beyond the basics of like the Feedbin interface, ReadKit is my favorite though.
RSS is live and well.
Yeah. Especially if you throw in newsletters, that helps a lot.
If I'm using Readbin, do I need Reader or
Feedbin? Feedbin is like Google Reader. It's like the place where you put you subscribe to all of your things, and it's got a web interface.
Yeah.
And then there are a long number of clients that will also work with it if you would rather use a specific client.
It serves, for me, it serves two functions. One, to be the central truth of all of my RSS feeds, no matter how I access it. And two, I happen to like the web client for the phone and desktop really, really well. So I also use it for now as my regular RSS reader and news reader. But if you just want to use it as the central truth, meaning every time that you find a new website, say, oh, wow, those are 3 great articles. I want to start following this every single day. You open up feedbin.com, add it, or use a keyboard, use the bookmarklet to add it to that. And then if you have a third-party app with a nice Mac interface to actually do the reading, if you want to use that, that's fine. But it's not your truth of subscriptions is not going to be locked up within this third-party app. It will be Feedbin. So if you decide that, oh wow, this other RSS app works so much better, or this RSS app I like isn't available for Android, what can I do on Android? That doesn't matter. They'll be both giving you the same access to that same database of feeds.
I'm paralyzed by too many choices.
Get Feedbin, pay money.
Just start with Feedbin in the web interface, and then see if you want to add an app on top of it.
Okay. Now there's still NetNewsWire, and I have InnoReader, which I've been paying for years,
and most of them work with Feedbin.
What do I need Feedbin for?
They don't.
Well, Feedbin is one of the advantages of having, it's like Google Reader. It's the idea that there's a central thing that contains all your subscriptions, and it knows what you've read and what you've not, and it'll sync it. And it's the one who's polling, so that when you open the app, it doesn't sit there and poll 80 different RSS feeds one at a time. It's doing it in the background on the server in the cloud. And so it's just convenient. You don't need Feedbin to read RSS. It just, as Andy said, it gives you a central repository. They're the ones doing the querying. And the best, again, for those who remember Google Reader, it's basically that idea. It is its own service that does that in the background in the cloud.
And none of them are reading out loud yet. Like, I feel like we're on the cusp.
And that's what Omnivore was bought by 11 Labs, because that's what's going to happen. I
feel like we're on the cusp of just saying, just read these articles. Like,
that's 11 Reader. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, because
maybe that'll integrate with Feedbin.
It probably will. I mean, that's the beauty of it.
But what about this unread? Should I not even look at that? Because I like this shortcuts idea.
Well, you can. It's an app, so you can try it for free, and it will sync with Feedbin. So you could give it. Although the shortcuts, I think you have to pay for. I think it syncs with Feedbin. I mean, they mostly do. So I would start with
it. Does everything syncs with Feedbin?
You know, it sounds like Feedbin is the
central repository for all of this.
It's a good central repository. I think the way to think of it is just like the idea of having an email client. Like, you choose a client that works for you. Email is email. This is sort of like that, where you choose an RSS client that works for you. And if you want to use Feedbin as the central repository, it's nice. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so confused.
And newsletters. Pipe your newsletters in there. It's beautiful.
That's the main thing I want to do. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice to have one central place where all the stuff lived.
100%.
And then you had all the... And I like the idea of shortcuts. So I have, I could send it to my microblog. I could send it to my tweet storm or whatever. And then that would be kind of nice too. Okay. One of these days, I wish I had some free time. I could just sit down and set this stuff up. Thank you, Jason Snell. 6colors.com is the place to go. 6colors.com/Jason will give you all of his wonderful podcasts. And go Blue.
Roll on you Bears. Go Bears.
Go
Yes.
Bears.
Go Bears. Beat
Go
Stanford.
Bears.
Bring back
That's
the
it.
axe again.
Bring
We
back
have the axe.
Bring
To be
home
clear,
the axe.
we have the axe.
Let's
but
not
we would
be
like to keep
confused
the axe.
on that issue. The
No.
axe is ours. How many years
Stanford.
has the axe been
Okay.
yours?
3 years in a row, maybe at this
Nice.
point. It's good.
It's about
Yeah.
time. Yeah. It's about time you get to keep the axe. I don't know. Thank you, Jason. Andy Anako, when are you going to be on GBH next?
Thursday at 12:30 Eastern Time. Go to wgbhnews.org to stream it live or later.
Nice. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Alex Lindsay, do you have an RSS reader recommendation?
I do not. I'm following. I've been trying to find one. You know, I think I feel like I've been in the wilderness trying to figure it out. So
Me too.
I've just downloaded all of these to like play with them because I do think that. I mean, I have to admit, most of my news is Apple News and Flipboard. I still have Flipboard after all these years.
Right.
But they changed. It's funny how something changed, like Flipboard changed something with the way they managed ads, and I completely stopped using it. Like that's the thing that always scares me about changing products is that it was like something I used for 10 years, and then like within a month I was not using it anymore. You know, and so now I'm kind of like, well, I got to find somewhere else to get news because I'm not using that anymore. So and it was just something like, you know, too many ads, or the ads were. Here's what they were: is they were scrolling down from the top. Like, I was like, I pretty much hate windows moving across other windows. You know, like when I'm browsing, and so if a website does that or anything does that, I stop using it. So anyway, so I'm interested in what Jason and Andy have to say.
Yes.
So I've downloaded those. Gonna play with them. I just want something that'll read them to me because I don't, you know, like I love being able to work on other things while I listen to all the articles. So.
11 Labs has Laurence Olivier's voice. You can have Larry reading you.
Yeah, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it.
Well, we've all learned something today. I thank you so much for being here. I forgot to ask you, officehours.global. What you got coming up? Got to give you a plug.
All you're going to see is us right now. What's happening is that we of course we have, you know, we got bored, so we made more shows. So we have, you know, so on Monday nights we have Extra Hours, which is a much slower, you know, discussion. So we only deal with a couple subjects in over 2 hours, and then we have the Rundown, which is on Thursday, and that is again slightly different play on the format. And then otherwise, we're not doing as many second hours right now because we're doing all this R&D around the quality of our streams. So we've moved to 4K. That's working fine. We're now adding HDR, which is still a little hit and miss. We're having some, you know, we're figuring out some esoteric ways of getting to YouTube. So we're working on that right now. We're going to expand the number of You're already ahead of us where you're streaming to lots of platforms. We're going to start doing that over December. And then, you know, we're adding some frame rate. Again, a lot of this has to do with, we want to cover a bunch of shows next year, and we want the whole thing to be in, you know, 4K and 5.1 and HDR, and when we're on site, but we need to build our entire platform to support that. So every day you're going to see things, you know, so if you want to watch the thing, generally we're answering lots of questions, you know, so while we figure that out, so it's good.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andy, Alex, Jason. Thanks to all of you. Special thanks to our club members for making this all possible. We do stream remarkably, amazingly, thanks to Restream.io on 8 different platforms. Club members get to watch in the Club Twit Discord. A lot of them choose YouTube anyway because YouTube's quality is very good. YouTube.com/twit/live, Twitch.tv/twit. There's also X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Kick, and TikTok. So pick your favorite platform. You can watch us stream as we do the show for most of our shows, but in this case, every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. After the stream is over, we then polish it up. John Ashley adds his special little je ne sais quoi, and we put a copy of it up on the website, twit.tv/mbw, audio or video, you choose. There's also a YouTube channel. You'll see at the website the link that is the entire show video. That's useful for sharing little clips. Like if you have a friend who's saying, you know, I wonder what RSS reader I should use, just confuse the hell out of him and send him that clip. And that way, maybe he'll be turned on to MacBreak Weekly, and certainly he will come up with some good ideas for how to do RSS. There's also the best way to subscribe is in a podcast client of your choice, Pocket Cast or Overcast or Apple's podcast, whatever it is that you use. Just look for MacBreak Weekly, subscribe to the audio or video, and that way you'll have it the minute we're done fixing it up so you can listen to it whenever you're in the mood. I would do all of the above. That way you get it all. Join us in the club, twit.tv/clubtwit, and join us next week for another MacBreak Weekly. Now it is my sad duty to tell you, you must get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.